Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to foot.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everyone? A pleasant good evening, dissidents, one and all. Welcome to the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. We have a very, very special show tonight. I'd like to introduce to everybody our guest of the hour, Mr. Jason Aldean. Everybody, please put your hands together. Jason Aldean. Just kidding.
Get out your two-step boots.
Yeah.
No, actually, we're doing our Barbieheimer special. Our regularly scheduled program will be on Friday, but we actually were able to get the housekeeper of the creator of Barbie, and we also got a guy whose uncle was the biggest meth dealer in Los Alamos in the 90s.
Interesting. I know I see some people commenting in the chat already. I know we're on at the same time. Jimmy Dore is on tonight, going toe-to-toe with the man himself. I know he was late coming on. He's supposed to come on at 6. Didn't come on until about 6:30, 6:40, which is, it's fucking up our shit a little bit. That's all right.
A little bit. Insulted us a little bit.
A little bit.
We're going to have to reach out to Jimmy. Well, he's pissed about our RFK show.
Yeah, well, he, apparently, and I did listen to a little bit of it, about the Anderson Cooper Cornel West thing, which we will, of course, touch on a bit later on in the evening. I listened to it on and off. He doesn't let you rewind during his streams. It's kind of like real TV. You can't go back if you miss something. And I was a little late doing everything today. I had to run out and get some stuff for my child, some food. So I had to I was in the car sort of driving around, and I heard some of it, but then I turned off some of it. But yeah, it seemed pretty spicy, That's old school Jimmy Dore. That's 2017, 2018, Jimmy Dore, a little bit of vintage stuff, playing the hits a little bit. You know what I mean? I feel like he's mellowed a little bit in recent years. And I know people don't use the words Jimmy Dore and mellow in the same sentence too often. But I feel like he doesn't go on those real epic sort of red-faced rants the way he used to every show. You know what I mean? I feel like his presentation has become a bit more subdued in recent years. But I hear he played one of the classics, so I'll watch it when a clip comes out, I guess.
Since he got the job.
What's that?
Since you got the
right, exactly. Yeah, mellowed him out. Exactly.
I mean, that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to pacify all of us.
Pacify, right? Mellow out, right? Just kind of mellow out. That's why they call it. That's why it is safe and effective.
It drops your It drops your T levels.
Yeah, exactly. That's a joke, YouTube. Relax, all right?
Yes.
It's called comedy. We don't know anything about that, folks. Thanks for being here. 210 strong to start the evening. That's what we like to see. Got a nice chat going over in Rumble, too. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. If you're over on Rumble, hit the follow button on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We thank you all very much for being here tonight. This is going to be a fun show. We have a lot to cover. A little bit of housekeeping to take care of. We are going to be doing our patron exclusive stream tomorrow night at 8 p.m. That is an exclusive stream over on Rumble. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little later in the show. But we like to start off these shows, now that Russell has his bookshelf, we like to start out with a little book recommendation. And this actually has to do with an upcoming guest who we were just able to book today. So go ahead, take it away.
Yes, we just booked a guest I've wanted to talk to as long as we've had the show. We're having Thomas Frank is coming on August 2nd. And this is the perfect time. I've mentioned it several times on this show, on the Post-Duopoly show. His last book, The People Know, really gets into the history of third parties in America, of populism in America, and what the establishment, what elites, what the media have always done to crush those movements. And it's fascinating how familiar all of that will sound to you, especially if you're a veteran of the Bernie campaigns. So this also ties into a story we're gonna do later about Jason Aldean's song being pulled down from country music. What is it? CMT? What is it?
Yeah, country music television. Yeah,
television. So this relates to it and how we're going to cover it. This is Thomas Frank's masterful origin story of why that kind of culture in those regions, which actually used to be known. I mean, Kansas was known as Bloody Kansas. It was known for these rural kind of grapes of wrath, left-wing, radical movements, these real working class farmer kind of uprisings, and how it turned into a place where they're not listening to Fortunate Son anymore. They're listening to Beer for My Horses, right? They're listening to these very uphold law and order. These, how did, country music has tracked with that movement towards that style of conservatism that a lot of these songs reflect, are tracking a very successful effort by the Republican Party and conservatives generally to turn those regions towards a very different kind of social conservatism and away from economic populism. So this is a book that really gets into how that happened. Probably the best book on the subject by Mr. Thomas Frank. What's the Matter with Kansas? It's kind of it's his trilogy. What's the Matter with Kansas, Listen Liberal, and The People Know. You should read all three of them.
Yeah, we're going to be focused more on The People Know. I read What's the Matter with Kansas in college, though, freshman year, which is really my only full year of college. So when I say freshman year, that's what I mean. When I say college, that's what I mean.
When I say my year at college.
Yeah, right, exactly. I read that during one of the very few classes I attended at college. Yes. No, it's a great book. I love Thomas Frank. I'm really looking forward to that. Although I got to say, given all the third-party momentum that we're starting to feel right now, he's going to hear a little bit from me if he starts talking about how, he's going to vote for Biden again, because he is one of these guys who, despite everything he says, he ends up a Democrat at the end of the day. And I've always been very frustrated about that, precisely because I think he's such a brilliant guy. And he seems like a very good and decent guy. And so I don't get that. So I'll ask him, and we'll see how it goes. I'll be nice. I always am. But yes, we're looking forward to that very much. That'll be August 2nd. So that's the first Wednesday of next month, 2 weeks from tonight. So mark your calendars, folks. Be there. That's going to be fun. Hit the like button, please.
That is really one of the people I have most wanted to interview on this show. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it very much. Folks, hit that like button tonight. We're up against the algorithm and Jimmy Dore tonight, so we could use the help. All right. We not only get the algorithm to deal with, now we got him bursting a blood vessel over there, from what I hear. So we're up against it tonight. Okay, so hit that like button.
Hit that like button. Subscribe, you little. They're all subscribed.
They're all subscribed. Most of these guys are subscribed.
Most of them are subscribed. I was talking last night to someone who said, and I've heard this from a lot of people, how Listen Liberal was a very red pill book for them. Mm-hmm. I've heard that from a lot of people, that book really dropped the scale from their eyes about what the Democratic Party actually is. Basically, what he did with What's the Matter with Kansas for Republicans, he turned his attention to the Democrat side of how the Democrats made what he described in What's the Matter with Kansas possible. That's why, they're really companion books. But, what he also talks about a lot in interviews is they loved inviting him on CNN and MSNBC when he wrote What's the Matter with Kansas.
Right, because that was a very anti-Republican book. Right, that was 2003 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. When he wrote Listen Liberal, you'd never see him on those shows anymore.
Yeah, What's the Matter with Kansas was early aughts, I remember.
2004. Right?
2004. Okay, makes sense, because that was an election year. Alrighty, folks. So, like I said, we have a lot of great stuff to get to tonight. We are going to play a little bit of Cornel West versus Anderson Cooper, although we had really built the segment more around James Carville, since we just played a Cornel West interview on the last show. So we were hoping to mix it up a little, and we will. But we will get to that in due time. We're not going to make you wait all night for that, folks. But in the meantime, like I said, let's get a crowd in here, right? Let's hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Tip jar is out on Rumble and YouTube. We will read all super chats and Rumble rants. Those are all super helpful. So thank you very much for your support. Here's a little headline for you guys that you may have recognized. This was tweeted out from a Politico newsletter yesterday. The Justice Democrats are apparently, like Marianne Williamson, having some money problems. First in the playbook. So this is off of the Politico email newsletter. It got tweeted out. Major layoffs at Justice Dems. Justice Democrats, the progressive pack that made waves in recent years by helping a new generation of lefty candidates run against more establishment Dems, laid off 9 of its 20 employees this week as the organization faces a major financial crunch, Daniel Lippman reports. Quote, it's no secret that Democratic and progressive organizations like us are in a difficult fundraising environment right now, Justice Dem's executive director Alexander Rojas said in a statement to Playbook. We had to make tough decisions to remain one of the most impactful progressive organizations in the country for years to come. Well, you didn't make those tough decisions very well, did you? Right? Like the tough decision to endorse Joe Biden a year and a half ahead of the vote, that might be having something to do with the fact that your base of progressives, insurgents, ruckus causers, disruptors, right? That may have something to do with the fact that they're not donating as much as you'd like them to. The group also separately lost its top spokesperson, Waleed Shahid, who left after 6 years and said in a tweet that he was proud to have played a role in building, quote, one of the most impactful democratic and progressive organizations from scratch. Shahid is joining the board of the organization as he figures out his next steps.
Okay. So this is an interesting question to me regarding the squad. Alexandra Rojas, what was it? She did something that really pissed off progressives. She ran cover for Biden or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. Some of our people will probably remember, but it was a major turning point where a lot of people stopped donating to them. I can't remember.
Well, it was shortly after the Super Tuesday debacle of the 2020 primary, when it looked very obvious that Bernie was not going to make it, that she started signaling that they were just going to fall in line pretty easily. I'm pretty sure that's what she did, because I remember hearing interviews with her. I heard an interview with her on, I think it was the Michael Moore podcast that he did pretty regularly at the time.
Yeah, she said something in an interview that made people's heads explode. I can't remember exactly what it was now. But as with Justice Democrats, so with Nina Turner, so with all the squad, we donated to them because we were supporting them to be insurgents. Once they stopped being insurgents, once they became the younger, more diverse Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer 2.0s, why would we donate to that? So I'm kind of curious how some of these people are going to campaign next time. Have they transitioned successfully enough into Instagram stars that now, people between, subscribing to OnlyFans, they'll send money
right.
to the squad? Like, have they successfully enough put themselves into that niche in social media that they can fundraise off those people, or just going to respond to their celebrity? Because they're not getting money from us.
Well, it's going to be a problem for like the newer crop of the so-called squad members who are not household names yet. Like AOC will have no problem. I don't think Rashida Tlaib will have much of a problem. AOC is a big star. Tlaib is very popular in her district. Somebody like an Ilhan Omar, who narrowly won her primary.
Nobody shows up to AOC's events, as we know.
No, but she's the most
Jose
famous
Vega's
member
videos.
of Congress. I mean, she'll be fine. I don't think she'll have any problem.
Like,
I don't think Rashida Tlaib will have any problem. But I think that some of the others might.
So are they going to get money from like normie Democrats? Like, who's going to give them money? Progressives are not going to give them money. So are they? Has their journey to the dark side been complete? Is Myron Applebaum, my favorite person to
right.
Conjure on the show? Is he going to write AOC? I like the cut of a jib. Is he going to write her a check? Like, where? I'm curious. Like, how do they maintain the no corporate money thing now?
I mean, I think when you have either a lot of popularity in your district, as someone like Tlaib does, or if you're AOC and you just ride name ID alone, I don't think it's as urgent a problem. I do think someone like Ilhan Omar will have a harder time because she narrowly won her last primary. That was a sleeper thing where she almost lost. She came within 5 points of losing to, a more centrist Democrat. And then you have this new crop like the Summer Lee and the Greg Cassars. Right. They're not celebrities. They're no household names. They're certainly vulnerable to a primary from the, quote unquote center, right? For whatever that's worth anymore. So yeah, that could be a problem for them. But it just looks like all the wind has been taken out of the sails. And, look, they've got no one to blame but themselves. It just goes to show that, when you don't deliver on what you said was your reason to be in the first place, you're going to have a fundraising problem. Like, if their goal was to just infiltrate the Democratic Party, well, in a certain sense, you've done it, right? You've done it in the worst possible way, which is you've just acquiesced to power. Right. That means your candidates might be okay because they're going to be less threatening to the system, so the system is going to be less likely to come after them. The only problem when you work at Justice Democrats is the system doesn't need you anymore, right? Like, what do they need this little progressive pack of, shit-talking losers, chirping in their ear all the time? Well, what reason is there for you? If AOC can raise money without you, then she will. If the Democrats aren't going to challenge her because at the end of the day, look, she's endorsing Biden a year and a half ahead of the vote, right? What are they going to get rid of her for? Why? Why would you at this point? She's good for the Democrats at this point. She serves the Democratic establishment at this point. It's good to have some progressives in there, right? This is what people have said going back years, right? It's good to have the progressive good Democrats that the left-wingers will feel satisfied with, right? That's why they let Dennis Kucinich stay there. There's always Howard Dean back in the day when he was more of a lefty, right? That helps the Democratic Party. It's good for the Democratic Party to allow some quote-unquote troublemaking progressives who every once in a while
look at the big tent we have
out of line. Big tent. It also keeps a lot of progressives from leaving the party, right? I mean, that's the purpose that they serve. And so that's speaking for the candidates. When it comes to an organization like Justice Democrats, yeah, why? Who's going to donate to them? The people who were donating to them were us. We're not. So what reason do you have to exist anymore? Zero. That's why they had to get rid of half the staff.
Right. And my prediction would be if they don't close up completely before the end of this election cycle, they'll be gone shortly after. I think they're done as an organization because, where's their money going to come from? In the end, as Elizabeth Warren demonstrated by selling what soul she may or may not have to the establishment and getting absolutely fucking nothing, these people don't forgive and forget, right? Like you gave them trouble once, they'll never bring you inside the tent. They'll never really give you anything that they don't have to give you.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. And ultimately, at the end of the day, this is all a good sign because we need that progressive energy outside of the party right now. There's no reason to donate to these organizations anymore, whether it's Our Revolution, Justice Democrats, any of them, right? They're all just worthless. They've all proven to be worthless. And so some good news to start off the nights. We'll go over to our second headline now. This was a video that went kind of viral yesterday of Joe Biden seeming to fall asleep in front of the Israeli president. Now, when you look at about the 15-second clip that went viral, it looks like he's dozing off and nodding off because he starts slurring his words and his eyes are down here and he starts kind of talking like this. When you take a look at the fuller video, it's a little more apparent that he's not sleeping. However, it doesn't really make him look any better. In fact, in my opinion, it sort of makes him look a little bit worse because what looks like him closing his eyes and taking a nap is actually him reading off of note cards for what was only a 4-minute little, formality of a mini press conference where you just, everybody does it, where you sit in the chairs and the press comes and they take pictures and then you go have a longer talk. But here is Joe Biden meeting with the president of Israel.
Be careful, don't get hurt. Well, Mr. President, welcome back. Welcome back to Washington. Welcome back to the White House, and it's a pleasure to have you. And, we were together in Israel, and
he's got the notes in his lap.
To talk about. And my love for Israel is deep-rooted, long-lasting. And as I often said, if it wasn't Israel, we'd have to invent one. And but 75 years. 75 years. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe I remember about 2/3 of those. And
this guy Isaac Herzog, the president of Israel. Obviously, Netanyahu is the prime minister. In a parliamentary system, the president's largely a ceremonial role he's got to be looking at
Like
him
the
being
vice president.
exactly. He's got to be thinking, man, this is like RFK without the pecs, you know. Like at least RFK is easy on the eyes. I gotta listen to this fucking guy here blow smoke up my ass, reading off a fucking note card for literally. This went on for 4 minutes. What do you need note cards for? What are you reading note cards for? It's literally, hey, good to see you. Israel's a friend. It's the same thing you've been saying your whole career. Like this is just boilerplate shit you've been saying for 50 years. You're sitting there reading off of note cards. Yeah.
I mean, I really want to see the West Wing episode where the president's ne'er-do-well son gets blamed for the bag of coke they find in the West Wing, but it turns out it's actually the president using it to stay awake during press conferences.
Right, exactly. Tusker says we'd have to invent an Israel. Yeah, he says that in this clip. If there wasn't an Israel, we'd have to invent one. Well, we did invent one. I mean, it's an invented state. That's why it's there. Right?
All right, you fucking godless heathens. God created Israel, okay? Created by God. Don't even get me into the Bible, man. I actually read it, and I spent years torturing religious people who would come up to me on the street and very quickly regret it.
Right. Here it is. Here's some more.
I believe it's just simply unbreakable. And together, working to bring more stability and integration in the Middle East, and a lot of hard work. We've got a lot more to do, but there's progress. Last year we convened the largest gathering of Arabs and Israelis in a decade at the Negev Forum, and we resolved the maritime boundary dispute between Israel and Lebanon, which people thought could never happen.
See, this is the start of
we
get where the
opened up
viral clip
airspace
went.
for Israel and over Saudi Arabia and Oman after I had a little visit there. And we brought Israelis and Palestinians together at a political level, as I
you project strength, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. This looks like the lobby of an old folks' home. That was the clip there. That last 10 seconds was the clip that went viral, where he started slurring his words after, we brought the Israelis.
And what is this? Are they trolling RFK? Isn't that Bobby up on the right?
Exactly.
Hey, get the Bobby bust out of the basement.
Yeah, right.
I want that in the background from now on whenever he's speaking.
This was 4 minutes. This whole bit went on for 4 minutes, and he's got no cards, and he's reading off of them. I mean, you see a thing like this, and you think, the thing that came to my mind was the choice to put Kamala Harris in the vice presidential role was the smartest choice in the world for Joe Biden, the man.
Right. Yeah.
Not for the Democratic Party, certainly not for the country, but for Joe Biden, the man. If his ego rests upon being a two-term president, Kamala Harris was the smartest pick he could have made, because the only reason he is not being forced to step down is because they can't have Kamala run. She's a bigger liability than him. So picking Kamala Harris was the insurance policy against being thrown out. Because if it were anyone else, they would say, all right, listen, Joe, you can finish the term, but you can't run again. You have to step down for health reasons. And we'll say it's for health reasons. And, it kind of is for health reasons. You have mental health reasons, right? And that'll be that. They can't do that with Kamala. No. They can't do that with Carville. So
in hindsight, everyone was talking about how stupid it was, but it was a brilliant chess move.
In a very Nixonian sense of protecting his own power.
By picking someone so much of a non-starter politically. Like from that perspective, the fact that she couldn't even get to South Carolina is a win. Right? She couldn't even get to New Hampshire. She couldn't even get to Iowa.
Because think about it, there's all this chatter now about can he run again, but nobody is saying, well, Kamala's got to run. Nobody, not even on MSNBC, nobody is saying, no, he should let Kamala run.
And then how do they go to their loyal base of black women and explain why they're running Gavin Newsom?
Right, we're putting Newsom in. Right, exactly. Right.
How do they explain that? Because in that community, just based on the numbers, they don't like her. They don't particularly like her, but there's no way that would not be taken as a slight. Even so, because it would be such an exceptional thing to do to not run the vice president in a case like that.
Right. Of course. And so,
but like you'd almost force that community to defend her.
Right. I mean, if he picked Abrams for VP, everybody on MSNBC, they'd be screaming it morning, noon, and night. He has to step down and let Stacey Abrams run. Right. Yep. Instead, none of them are saying that. And that really says quite something. All right, let's take a couple of super chats, folks. Thank you for your generosity. The super chats are super helpful. We really do appreciate that very much. Mason Stone, thanks for the $4.99. My wife subscribed to you guys on the condition I don't make her listen to Jimmy anymore. Oh, she don't like Jimmy? Oh, okay. Now I have to listen to him in the car when she's not around. Yeah, I was listening to him in the car because I was running errands up until like 7:15 this evening. But thank you for the donation, my friend. And I mean, we can get hot under the collar at times, So I hope your wife is okay with that. But we tend to be a bit more subdued as a whole. Courtney, thanks for the chat. Courtney is a member chat. Thank you for that. That's been most left activist movements too. Yes, indeed. When it comes to Justice Democrats, Our Revolution, Sunrise Movement, a lot of those organizations, DSA to a large extent, right? A lot of the local chapters do good work, but as a whole, DSA falls into that same exact category. Yeah, no, it's a very unfortunate thing, but it's a product of there not being anyone making serious noise outside the two-party system, which is one of the reasons why the Cornel West candidacy, I think, is so important. Because now we actually have that, right? I mean, he's been invited more on CNN. They've had him on CNN more times this past week than they've had Marianne in the past couple of months. Even RFK, like, when does he go on CNN? Like, they're just not. They're just not the threat that he is, for the very simple reason that he's outside of the Democratic Party, and hopefully he brings some organizations along with him. He spoke at the Black Lives Matter Justice and Freedom Festival last week. Tavis Smiley was on stage with him. Tavis Smiley said, he's got my vote. That's pretty good. Tavis Smiley's not a radical by any means, so, but that's a good sign to go out there and, talk to groups that have historically been very susceptible to being co-opted, right, by the Democratic Party. To have a guy out there who can go out there and direct that energy somewhere else is very important.
Well, and also this is putting the lie to all of the PMC commentators who are trying to advocate for Marianne, to a lesser extent for RFK, that, well, to get your message out there, you have to run in the Democratic Party. Well, as far as I can see, Cornel West, since he announced, has been more effective, has had more exposure, and is doing more to get his message out there and be a topic of conversation and force a debate on some of these really core issues that we'll get into, that we had the tweet go viral today on. Keaton put that together.
Yeah, we were going to show that later. Don't worry. I know some people are asking for it.
Dismantling that exchange they had on war and American imperialism. Yo, man, do you see anyone who's running inside the Democratic Party talk that way about American imperialism? Have you ever seen? Do you think you're going to see RFK go up there and start going, oh, yeah, well, NATO is an arm of the American war machine? I've never seen anyone running in that party talk like that, including Bernie. Bernie knew the lines he couldn't cross. That's part of why he never really articulated much of a foreign policy. So anybody who's been saying, well, he should have run as a Democrat so he could get his messages out there, since he announced, he's been putting the lie to that quite effectively. I would argue his voice is getting out there, certainly much more than Marianne's. I would wager the average American doesn't even know she's running for president. And I would say more than RFK.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I know I've heard RFK talk more red-pilled about Ukraine, certainly, than Marianne. But not like that. Well, on the Anderson Cooper interview, which we will get to, I watched it. I mean, one of the unfortunate things is that Anderson Cooper ended up doing most of the talking. And so that was part of what compelled me to make that video that went semi-viral this afternoon. But we will get to that for sure.
Well,
Don't worry.
That's another thing. When they do these interviews with people on corporate media, like Cornel West, on the rare occasion they get someone like that who's not going to play ball, they shout them down. They shout over them. But wait. Certainly you don't mean. They won't let them just run with that thought.
Yeah, and we'll probably do some more on the Anderson Cooper interview on Friday morning because we're only going to play a small part of it tonight because, look, we don't want to be the Cornel West show. Like, I understand not everybody in the audience supports Cornel West, and so we obviously do, but I don't want to do what we accuse Kyle and Crystal of doing, which is just riding the dick of the Cornel West campaign all the way. Now, in this case, I don't consider it a waste of time or a grift because I actually think Cornel West has a real chance to do what we think would be useful, which is making a difference and getting 5% right. I don't feel like I'm stringing people along, but still, I have this thing where, like, I don't want to do the same show every time. And so I didn't really want to do the Cornel interview tonight, but it's just so huge now that we have to play a little of it. And we will. And Tusker, thanks for the $2. We will play my viral little video that's got to be up around 300,000 views now. So that's great news.
I think it's over.
Okay, well, we got a big boost from Glenn Greenwald and Caitlin Johnstone. Actually, both tweeted that out. So that's great because those are, in terms of independent media creators, they're both of those two are on my Mount Rushmore. So it was really cool to get a retweet about it.
All right, so hang on. So Ellen says this a lot, and I will respond to this. Okay, part of why I'm going to do more research on Cornel West and what he's had to say in the past, and I just know some people don't like what he's had to say. My support of West is, I like what he's saying. I loved watching him say something like that on CNN, and I think that in and of itself explains part of the purpose of his candidacy. What he's doing is actually what they tell you should run in the Democratic primary to do, but you'll never do it that way. He's really doing it. He's putting such a bug up their ass, and he's managing to do something that Jill Stein was never quite able to do, nor any other Green Party candidate. He's managed to become a man bites dog story that they can't resist the way that Trump did. I mean, not on the scale of Trump, but it seems like the conflict that this raises and the anger it raises in their core audience on these liberal networks, just like they couldn't resist platforming Trump to stir up their audience and get clicks and views. It seems like they're kind of making that mistake with West, which is great. So, Ellen in particular, you keep asking about that. Honestly, I really don't give a flying fuck, to be honest with you. I would run a sock puppet if I thought it was going to get 6%. Now, I don't feel that way about West. I like West. I like a lot of what he's saying. What people are talking about. Well, yeah, and I don't agree with everything that he says. But to me, this is tactical. Like, he's not becoming president. Like, he's not winning. Like, I don't need to be like, well, what is he going to do with the nuclear codes? Like, that's not even relevant, right? Like, he needs to get above 5%. I think he has a decent chance to do that. As I said previously on the show when we talked about this, there are a couple of red lines for me that if he does decide to come on the show at some point, I'll ask him about. And even so, I concede that because my interest is so tactical, that's not really rational. That's just, I wouldn't respect myself if I supported him on if he takes certain positions on certain issues that I've made very clear where I stand on and I feel very strongly about. And I'm not even saying that makes sense because my interest is strategic.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, it doesn't.
I know it doesn't. I mean, it makes sense to. All right, so hang on, because Ellen, she's one of our peeps. She bought me a bagel. I come real cheap.
She's bought us a lot more than a bagel. Ellen's one of our best patrons and donors and supporters.
Of course.
So
Yeah,
she bought you a lot of bagels, my friend.
She bought us many bagels.
Yeah, you
but
bought
she
you more bagels
she
than you know.
literally directly bought me a bagel. Directly, not metaphorically. She really bought me a bagel. Are
Folks,
you
hit the like button, please. Like I said, up against the algorithm and Jimmy Dore. So help us out. Hit that like button. Let's go. Let's get this up here. We want to play the 666 tonight. If you want that sound drop, you're gonna have to work for it. Hit that like button.
Call your cousins.
Yeah.
Are we working for a working class agenda? If you feel as I do that you cannot get any kind of a real working class movement within the political system without breaking the back of the two-party system, yes.
I mean, yeah, this is about dismantling the Democratic Party. That's what Cornel West's candidacy is.
I bought my own bagel. I thought you bought me.
Which is necessary, which is very necessary. So that's what I would say. That it is a cudgel to wield against the Democratic Party, and it's working.
That's it.
It's already working. You could tell it's working. You got Axelrod. Axelrod can't take a shit without tweeting about the dangers of Cornel West. Running. You got Anderson Cooper. You had Caitlin Collins the other day. James Carville, as we're gonna see soon. So look, even if you didn't,
that's exactly what we had hoped for.
Everything is proceeding as I had foreseen.
Yeah. I mean, even if you didn't love his performance in that Anderson Cooper interview, which I did not. I think Anderson Cooper talked too much. I think he let him talk too much. That's part of why I made the video, since I thought a point needed to be driven home that he didn't quite drive home. And so, however you feel, it's very obvious they are scared. And that's what we need. We need them scared. They were not scared up until he switched to the Green Party. They weren't even really scared when he declared his candidacy under the People's Party. They got scared when he switched to Green, because now they know that they're going to have to deal with him, right? He's going to be on the ballot against them. All right, let's take one more super chat, and then we're going to get into our third headline. This is from Rumble, a Rumble rant from Stone122. Now that you're supporting Brother Cornel, what am I supposed to do with all my extra Bulla merch? Well, we'll be happy to tell you we are. We haven't formally launched this, but we are hard at
99-cent store.
Yeah, we're actually hard at work putting together the paperwork for the Bulla Global Initiative. That's what we're going to do. We're going to start a global charity network, the Bulla Global Initiative. And we hope to leverage that for some sort of cabinet position in the West administration. We're thinking, I don't know, Secretary of State, something like that. Seems to work, right? You set up a charity, you get picked for Secretary of State, right? So that's what we're gunning for now. That's what we're gunning for. You haven't heard the last of Extra Bulla.
We'll settle for ambassador to Latvia.
Yeah, right. Well, don't keep that. We don't, don't show your cards right away, right? If they know we'll settle, then you know. That's weakening our hand, right?
Courtney's still on the bullet train.
Courtney's still on the bullet train. All right. Well, look, there were a lot of Bernie people who didn't follow him into the Democratic Party in 2016. Courtney's one of those. She's Bulla or bust. That's it. What can you do? What can you do? All right, so folks, we have one more headline of the night, and then we have a bunch of main segments, so plenty more show to get to. But this has to do with a little country music, right? Talk a little country music on the Do Dissidents podcast. That's a first. Russell, you got a headline for us from the New York Times, was it?
Yes. Okay, so you don't have to call me darling. Darling, you never even called me by my name. Everybody sing. I used to love that song. I used to hang out at the only country bar in the village, Doc Holliday's, quite a lot. All right, so this story caught my eye today. So Jason Aldean, country music star, had his video pulled by Country Music Television for offensive content, although they didn't say why they pulled it, but presumably. The video released in May. See, they got that wrong, actually. The New York Times is wrong. This is disinformation. The song...
Working for the Kremlin.
They're working for the Kremlin. The song was released in May.
Told you I do not like the country music.
That's why this blew up now, because they just dropped the video on Friday, I think. was shot. So the video released Friday. I'm gonna put a little red line through that. Was shot in front of the Maury County Courthouse in Columbia, Tennessee, a site known for the 1927 mob lynching of Henry Coate, an 18-year-old black man, and is interspersed with violent news footage, including protests. State rep, just jumping ahead, we don't need to describe the video, we'll talk about it. State Representative Justin Jones of Tennessee, a Democrat, condemned the song on Twitter, describing it as a heinous song calling for racist violence that promoted a shameful vision of gun extremism and vigilantism. On Tuesday, CMT confirmed by email that it stopped airing the video on Monday, but did not offer any explanation. And so he sent out a tweet. Do you have a screenshot of that, or should I show it from here?
Yeah, just show it from there. It's right there.
Okay, so. All right. In the past 24 hours, I've been accused of releasing a pro-lynching song. A song that's been out since May. And I was subject to the comparison that I was not too pleased with the nationwide BLM protests. These references are not only meritless, but dangerous. There is not a single lyric in the song that references race or points to it. We'll get into that. And there isn't a single video clip that isn't real news footage. And while I can try and respect others to have their own interpretation of a song with music, this one goes too far. As so many pointed out, okay, I'm not going to play this one for last. He was present at that shooting in Vegas. I was present at Route 91, where so many lost their lives, and our community recently suffered another heartbreaking tragedy. No one, including me, wants to continue to see senseless headlines or families ripped apart. Try that in a small town for me refers to the feeling of a community that I had growing up, where we took care of our neighbors regardless of differences of background or belief.
Yeah, by threatening to execute anyone who crosses you somehow, right? Yeah, I mean, it is about community.
Can I go back now? Because they were our now that we're out of the mass shooting part of
right,
the
yeah, exactly.
Because they were our neighbors, and that was above any differences. Yeah, no, it was very it was a multicultural wonderland there in the depths of Iowa and places like that. My political views have never been something I've hidden from, and I know that a lot of us in this country don't agree on how we get back to a sense of normalcy where we go at least a day without a headline that keeps us up at night, but the desire for it too, that's what this song is about. Okay, so we do have people who have tweeted out, and what's interesting is they're not tweeting about the video, which is actually what got the backlash, because the New York Times misreported this. He's right. The song's been out since May. I never even heard of it. Unless you're into country music, you probably didn't. The video is what caused the backlash. And as anyone who watches our show on the regular knows, we're certainly not knee-jerk cultural leftists, right? Very often we take the other side on these issues. I didn't draw a conclusion. I watched the video for myself. Yeah, that video has a lot of coded messaging in it. So what do we want to take a look at? The tweets?
Well, we'll just take a look at a few of these screenshots from the video. So, the video basically shows a lot of photos from the BLM protests of 2020. He calls these Antifa protests as well. It's not exactly clear where all these images are sourced from. He's very careful in the video not to feature black protesters, which to me suggests a guilty conscience, because it means that he made the deliberate choice not to feature black protesters at Black Lives Matter events, because he probably knew that at some point he was going to get shit for this video. Right, so here's another screenshot from the video.
Right, which this one's very interesting to me. The reason I selected this is, remember, when people are making a movie, this is a lot, making a video or a movie or anything like this. These people are professionals. There's a lot of money on the line. You got a lot of people, a lot of eyes on it, production designers and everything. This image is not an accident. She's holding that phone as a kind of signifier of cultural status and cultural placement. Look at that liberal holding that cell phone, right? So he's very careful to try to not put any brown people in it, which is incredible to me because I included that image of the protest because, wow, I don't know where he went to find a protest that large fighting police without a brown face in that entire image. I mean, I was like, did they shoot this in France? But there are English signs in the background. Is this England? Like, I don't know where they went to find such a white crowd of protesters ready to throw down with the police. But they found it. They found only footage like that. So what that tells me is you're not dumb and you're not unconscious and you're not blind to the racial connotations of this video. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been so careful to show the absolute minimal amount of brown and black people. There are some at one point in an attack on a police car very briefly, and even that crowd is predominantly white. So you're thinking that much about race, and you realize that the messaging in this might get you some backlash. Okay, well, there's a really easy way to deflect that. He shows this vision of Americana, right? Of the kind of solid community that he in his response says the song is really about. What do you notice about these images? I know it's blurry. That was because they went with like grainy home movie stock. I couldn't get a better image than this. But yeah, man, everyone he shows enjoying that small town America is white. And then he has a segment where they have what I'm assuming is from a real newscast where I say, yeah, all the farmers are stopping work today to help out. And, they show this old man who, looks like he's going to cry. And he says, yeah, that's how it is in this town. When somebody needs help, everybody gets together and helps them. It never occurred to you, hey, man, maybe make someone who's not white say that, right? Like, if you really want to communicate that it's not about that, you clearly thought about this because it's not easy to find images of all white protesters fighting the police in fucking America. Okay, so clearly it was it's not like you weren't even thinking about the race of the people in this video. You clearly were. So why did you choose, and it is a choice, to only have white people if you weren't trying to put out that kind of a message?
Well, worst of all, in my view, is that the location, one of the most prominent locations where you see this American flag draped over the courthouse, was the site of a famous lynching of a black man. Now, look, if you didn't know that, that might be something you want to clarify that you didn't know in your response to the controversy, right? So you either didn't know that and thought it wasn't important enough to make mention of in your response, or you knew that and it was a dog whistle. It was an homage of sorts, right? These music videos are very, very high production things. Jason Aldean's a huge star. There was a lot of money. There were a lot of suits behind that music video. Every famous music video you see has a lot of guys and gals in suits and, whatever, pantsuits, whatever they wear these days at the office. I don't know.
Tracksuits.
Putting money into it, putting planning into it. It's very unlikely they didn't know the history of that site when they picked that. And so this is a fascistic video. It does encourage extreme, violent vigilantism. That is what it's about. That's what the whole "we'll beat your ass." And first of all, they're not going to beat your ass. They're not going to beat your ass. There were plenty of BLM rallies in small towns. Okay, they're not going to do shit. Okay, these new country people. Not country people, but country music stars, the big, guys with the guitars and the hats and the microphone that clips around. These are just these chubby, low-T losers, who like to talk about their fucking pickup trucks and all this shit. I'm going to do a radar about this soon, about country music's evolution from real populism to
they have radar
fascistic.
Trademarked.
Yeah, right, exactly. A shit post. I'll do a shit post soon about the evolution of country music from this sort of rugged populism into this sort of militant fascistic sort of genre, which a lot of it has turned into. And I still listen to some country music. I'm a big music fan. I listen to everything. But there used to be this grubby sort of salt of the earth quality to a lot of the country music. And I think 9/11 really accelerated this change, right? Because then there just became this strain of real like militant country music. And I'm not talking about outlaw country. I know that's its own genre, obviously. But something else. And this is certainly part of it. And one thing that I will make mention of here, because I know this video was pulled off of CMT, and we always give the libs a lot of grief about citing the private company's defense when they defend censorship on social media. In a case like this, the private company defense actually makes sense, because country music television, unlike social media, is not a public square. It's not a public forum, or it doesn't serve as a public square. I do not think this video should be pulled from YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, right? I think people should be allowed to share it, but that's the point. Sure. People should be allowed to share it if they want. An organization like CMT is well within its rights to say, hey, we curate musical content and we pick which stuff we want to showcase and which stuff we don't want to showcase. They're totally within their rights to say, no, we're not showing this video. And I don't blame them. Like, I wouldn't show this video on our YouTube channel if we had a music-themed YouTube channel. We can't show it now because, aside from any guidelines, content worries that, obviously we can't show a copyrighted music video on our channel. But, like, I wouldn't show it on my channel. Do I think nobody should be allowed to show it on their channel? No. Right. But this is an issue where that private company defense actually is legitimate. Yeah.
Yeah, it was right on YouTube. Like, it's there in the places that we would consider more public square. It's readily available.
Right.
You can't say, well, MTV has to show any video that anyone releases. Right. That's a ridiculous standard. Couple of other points about. Oh, well, go ahead.
Yeah. We had Ben Shapiro tweet, if you think these lyrics are racist, you're a racist. You apparently think these crimes are exclusively black or some such nonsense, right? Because he talks about if you rob a little old lady in the street or whatever, carjack an old lady at a red light, sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store, you think it's cool, we'll act a fool if you like. That won't fly in a small town, basically. You can't get away with that out here.
Which, again, there was no backlash against the actual song. You have that image of the guy in the liquor store?
Yeah.
Okay, so look, there is coding going on here. I looked very closely, and they were very careful to cast a white actor here. Like, if you look at the hand, it's white. But in the next frame, he punches these guys out and they scramble out the door, right? And look at this guy. He's the salt of the earth, right? He's got the trucker's cap. He's chubby. He's got the beard,
milk.
Right? So if you really want to make this point, if you want to make sure it's not about race, why'd you cast that guy, man? Why don't you cast an African-American in that, or a Latino or something?
Who's getting held up, right?
Who's getting held up. That you want to make the point that it's not about race. Why you putting the cast of the Dukes of Hazzard in this fucking video if that's not what you're trying to do? And a final point here. Do you have the lyrics? I sent you a screenshot of the lyrics themselves.
Yeah, I got the lyrics. Yeah.
Okay, so, and again, if you've watched our show, we call it down the middle, man. We don't jump on. If anything, certainly I am biased against a lot of the knee-jerk critiques of cultural products that are more conservative. I usually find them baseless. But that's not, in my opinion, it's not because I'm biased. It's because I think they're usually overreacting, or very often I feel like culturally they're actually on the wrong side of the issue.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, look, we don't go. I mean, I don't go. You don't go either. I can speak for you in this. We don't go looking for racism, transphobia, and homophobia everywhere online. We don't go looking for it and looking to categorize everything in that light. That doesn't mean we don't know it when we see it. We do know it when we see it, and we don't like it, right? And so, like, I don't have a problem calling it out where it actually exists. There's a difference between a sort of knee-jerk, or not knee-jerk, but a sort of
dishonest. I find a lot of the critiques dishonest. They're going out of their way to put the worst possible interpretation on what people say and what they do in ways that are very dishonest and unfair and very out of touch. I mean, look, we just did 2 different segments on the Sound of Freedom thing, and clearly we're on the other side of where, you know, liberals are on that. And we're very critical of, you know, all of these media outlets attacking a movie that at the end of the day is about a very real horror of child trafficking that really exists in the world. So, but hey, look, man, I mean, honest is honest. And yes, there are people who very dishonestly use terms like context to smear people. Hang on, bring it back up.
No, I will.
To smear people in places where clearly they said something innocent, or you really have to distort their intention to say it that way, and then they'll say context. So I understand why a lot of people are allergic to context or claims of context. But when you put these lyrics in the context of the history of vigilantism in small towns, at best, you're so caught up in a white way of understanding the world that you don't understand how this codes. And given what I consider very intentional choices that were made with this video, I'm not inclined to give that benefit of the doubt. And I was saying this when we were talking about it earlier. You know, there's a principle in debate and in philosophy that you should give the person you're debating or the person whose philosophy you're analyzing the most charitable interpretation. And I think I live by that. I do. I don't assume that you mean the worst thing you could possibly mean by what you say right off the bat. I need to see evidence that I should interpret what you're saying that way. That video is pretty strong evidence that a lot of the coding in these lyrics are not really ignorance. But I can't prove that. I don't know that. And he didn't actually write this song. He's one of those people who just perform shit that other people write, like Taylor Swift, actually. But let's take a look at these lyrics.
She writes some of her stuff.
Some of it, but a lot of it she does not. Okay, so try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here, we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't try that in a small town. Got a gun that my granddad gave me. They say one day they're going to round up. And they leaves it at that, which is kind of interesting. Right. Well, that shit might fly in the city. Good luck. Try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Okay, so look.
Horrible songwriting, by the way. No rhymes.
I mean, that's a whole other subject. But there is a long history of sundown towns where if you are black, you cannot be caught in that town after dark, or you're not going to make it out of that town alive. There's a long history of vigilante justice in towns like that, misdirected and aimed at outsiders, and being an outsider, not always, but usually meant being a person of color. So you're invoking a nostalgia for those images. You have to be very ignorant of the history of what all that means to someone who's not white to write a song like that and think it represents community. Now, benefit of the doubt, that's just ignorance. I can't, after watching that video, give the benefit of the doubt because you clearly coded that video to white people having a nostalgia for a whiter America of the past. And one final point, why don't you motherfuckers ever write songs about how you're going to go down to BP because they poisoned the Gulf and destroyed the livelihoods of a lot of the kinds of people who listen to this kind of music? Why don't I ever hear you writing a...
I'll go out of order, but this is a super chat. Virtuoso said pretty much the exact same thing. How about a country music song called Black Rock Took My Home for once in a while?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So you want to talk all this, don't try this shit in a small town. I mean, why don't you talk about the bank taking the house of your neighbor? Why aren't you talking exactly about BlackRock? Why aren't you talking about Vanguard? Why aren't you talking like country music and the folk music? That's kind of a related branch. Used to. Woody Guthrie, Fortunate Son. It ain't me. It ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one. Why aren't you writing shit like that? Why is it all about, man, those people in the city causing all that crime? Why don't you write about how these fucking towns, the people who listen to this music often live in, have been decimated by the political establishment, by corporations, by banks? I mean, that's what people like this were writing during the Depression, right? They were writing about that. Why are you writing about this culture war shit? And this is the real, I mean, aside from the fact that we just booked Thomas Frank, this was the reason I really pulled out this book, because this book gets into that. It explains how we wound up with this asshole singing this song instead of Fortunate Son.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I do think there was a significant turn, if not a turn, certainly an escalation in this sort of militant, fascistic, sort of right-wing rhetoric coming out of country music post 9/11. That was when the Red, White, and Blue song came out, the Lynyrd Skynyrd song that came out in 2003. You know, with the, if you don't like it, you can get the hell out. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. And so, you know, I'll do a closer examination. Maybe I'll do a shit post on this. I mean, I will do it. But
I'm looking forward to that. A lot of you don't know this, but Keaton's a musician.
I am a musician and I love music. And so it'll be fun for me to sort of dive into that a bit. And I am definitely looking forward to that. And one final point I want to make before we leave this. A big part of why I personally criticize a lot of identity politics is because this vision, in the end, is much more attractive and much more appealing in its appeal to a kind of nationalism and community than a vision of everybody being split up by their identity markers. That's almost an anti-community vision. Now, the older country had a community vision. It had a vision of the working class versus the bosses, right? Take this job and shove it, right? It had a vision of, it had a unifying vision. It had an us versus them. The left, the closest thing they have to that is a self-defeating vision of us versus half the country, right? Like they're all the bigots, all the people who listen to this, basically. And that is not an appealing vision. And yes, I'm deconstructing this video and this song, but I also recognize how appealing it is. I also recognize how nice it would be to feel like you could swallow this uncritically. I understand why people are attracted to this, especially in a country where they don't have a lot, where all their institutions are falling apart. A song like this encourages them to point their anger at all the wrong people and in all the wrong directions. If the left does not formulate an answer to that, they're going to win, and it's a big part of why they are winning, in my opinion. Ellen, member chat here. Russell Pablo Perugina. I hope I'm saying that name right, Ellen. I'm sorry if I don't. If I didn't. The musician you admired in my movie writes those songs. The problem is getting ears on his songs. Nashville has made songwriters like him impossible to find. Well, yes, that is a big problem. That is a big, big issue. And yeah, the Nashville country music scene is a lot of the Jason Aldean type. A lot of it. This genre is a huge, huge moneymaker. Country music takes in a ton of money. I think it's the most profitable genre in popular music because the audience skews a little older. So the thing about country music is they sell more albums. They sell more analog merch
because they can afford it.
Well, they could afford it. Well, the audience is older. The audience tends to skew a little older. They still got the CD player in the car. They don't have the Bluetooth and the Spotify hooked up to the, Bluetooth iHome speaker, right? It's more analog. So, like, you go to a Walmart in, like, middle America, you'll see a lot of country music CDs for sale, and they actually sell. I mean, I haven't been to middle America in a while, but, I have traveled the country, in my day, and I noticed that is a true thing. And so that's part of the reason why it takes in so much money. But yes, it's a very, very commercial enterprise for sure.
All right. This is going to be one of the only times on the show that there's an opening for this story. Okay. So New York is the only place in America where they've never been able to get a country music station going. They've tried again and again and again. So, we do these big free concerts in Central Park like every 10 years. So Garth Brooks did one. And it was on my birthday. So I decided to go. And Garth Brooks, he's promoting it on the radio. He's like, yeah, I'm going to prove there's country music fans in New York. I'm like, I don't know about that, Garth. I'll go, but we'll see. So I go. And, they do these it's called the Great Lawn. And the Great Lawn is packed, right?
Yeah, Paul Simon played the Great Lawn, yeah.
Paul Simon. Well, this series, like Barbra Streisand, Diana Ross, Simon and Garfunkel did it. I think the last one was Bon Jovi, which is kind of sad when you put him in that company. But so Garth Brooks did one. And, it was packed, but his opening act was Billy Joel. And Billy Joel is like Bruce Springsteen for New Yorkers. He's this favorite son of New York and Long Island, basically. So he finishes with New York State of Mind, and half the audience starts walking out of Central Park. Yeah. and to really bring the point home, his next opening act before he hit the stage was Don McLean. So you literally had thousands of people walking along the drives in Central Park singing, "Bye, bye, Miss American."
Exactly.
By the time Garth Brooks got on stage, it was about half the audience left.
Wow. Yeah. When was that? That had to be what, 90s?
It was not 94.
94 is a good guess.
That's why Spalding Gray said New York is an island off the coast of America. It is very true.
Indeed. Folks, you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and help support this program. You can go to patreon.com, go to DoDissidents.substack.com as well. Patreon members and paid Substack subscribers have call-in access to these live streams, as well as access to 2 Patreon and Substack supporter exclusive live streams per month. Our 1st of July is happening tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We got a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about tomorrow. The idea behind a lot of these patron shows is that we cover stuff that we couldn't really cover on YouTube. Those Patreon and Substack shows are done over on Rumble. So the way it works is if you sign up at patreon.com/DoDissidents or DoDissidents.substack.com as a paid subscriber, we will send you out a link in the morning with the invitation to watch and join in on the live stream that night. So you get a Rumble link. That Rumble link is an unlisted private link that's only for you guys. And so you click that link at showtime, and we hang out for a couple hours. We do a full-length show. They're a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to just hang out with our patrons in the chat and speak freely about issues we are allowed to speak freely about on that platform. So it's a real lot of fun. Our friends over at RBN, speaking of speaking freely, they have gotten penalized again by YouTube very unfairly. They have an appeal out. YouTube did get back to them, which is a good sign. But they interviewed Dr. Cornel West today on their sister channel, the Revolutionary Blackout Network Long Beach channel. That's where CJ lives, I guess. And so he has a little smaller sort of sister channel that they use, and their Rumble channel. They asked us to stream it on our channel today. Unfortunately, I was away, so I couldn't make that happen, but I told them I would post their interview to our channel, which we'll probably do tomorrow, since they're trying to get the word out as much as they can, and their channel is dark for 2 weeks. I mean, hopefully it's dark for another day. Hopefully they just, undo whatever actions they took on them. But keep an eye out for that. You can go to their Rumble channel and watch that. And I should have that posted up to our channel tomorrow. We're happy to do that for them, obviously. And so looking forward to that. Our supporter exclusive stream, like I said, is coming out tomorrow night at 8 p.m. You also get your name up in lights here as a paid supporter when you sign up at Patreon or Substack. You can sign up at YouTube. Also, there's a join button right next to the subscribe button. Those perks are listed when you sign up. They're a little bit different. We can't offer non-YouTube perks to a YouTube subscriber. So like we can't make the subscriber exclusive streams part of the YouTube perks since we don't do the streams on YouTube for the Patreon members. But there are benefits to signing up through any one of these various platforms. The biggest benefit is knowing that you're keeping independent media alive. You keep us afloat. That is very, very important to us. We thank you all very much for that. We're now doing 3 streams a week, so all of your support helps a tremendous amount, whether it's Patreon, Substack, becoming a member through YouTube, or even just giving these super chats when you can. So thank you guys very much.
We're having a little Billy Joel conversation down here. You know what my karaoke Billy Joel go-to is? Come out, Virginia. Don't let me wait.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go. That's a fun one.
That's a great karaoke song.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It's got a nice rhythm. Got a nice bounce to it. Is there any way to report elder abuse on behalf of a sitting president, says Where's Skill? Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure about that. But like I said, he did it to himself by picking Kamala Harris as his VP. So, if he wanted to be given the hook, then he probably should have hedged a little better. I think he was gunning for the 8 years, and now he's sort of a victim of that planning to the extent that it is elder abuse, which certainly looks like it. I mean, it is just really, really difficult to imagine him making it through the campaign cycle on 2 feet, like standing. I'm not saying he's going to croak, but I'm just saying, he's not going to be able to hide in the basement this time. We're not going to be locked down this time. You're actually going to have to go campaign this time. How?
Everyone's talking about Biden versus Trump. It would be very ironic if you wind up with neither of them. You wind up with like Newsom versus DeSantis.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. All righty. Let's go to Franklin Worsham. Thanks for the $4.99. Appreciate that, sir. The left is dead. If Biden is reelected, vote accordingly. It's interesting you say that. I'm not sure if the left is dead if Biden is reelected, but I understand what you're saying.
Freedom of speeches.
And it is true. Yeah, freedom of speech is, look, there's a lot that's on the line, obviously. But, I mean, the left, in terms of, the left flank of the Democratic Party is already gone. That's already meaningless. That's already been completely neutered. So I think at this point, if anything, if there is a silver lining here, is that Biden has been so disastrous that he's made the line very, very clear between who's serious about building actual outside power and who's not, right? Did anybody see that? I probably should have watched this to cover it. The Brianna Joy Gray interview with that Ari Robin Hoft guy who was the Bernie advisor. I mean, what a sad sack that fucking guy is. That guy is an image of the powerlessness of the left. I mean, that guy looked like he was about to cry. I was watching the interview. He literally looked like he was about to just curl up in a ball and start crying. Not a surprise that that faction of the so-called left, has no power, no influence, pulls no weight whatsoever. Axel Strife, thank you for the donation, my friend. We appreciate that very much. Oops, I'm sorry. There we go. My apologies. Oh, what the hell did I just do? There we go. Remember when they wanted to nail Trump with the 25th Amendment? Yeah, outrage. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, they're finding new ways to go after Trump every day, it seems like, and we'll get to that at the end of the show. But thank you for the donation. Abiding, 71. Thank you for the 99 cents. Appreciate that. As always, my friend, we'll do one more, then we'll read some more super chats. F the Dems, Green Party all the way, says Troy Bent. Thank you for the $10, my friend. It's not about winning. It's about shifting the conversation. If Trump wins, I'm willing to go down with the ship. I would say it's about more than shifting the conversation. I would say that part of what a Green Party run does structurally is it gives that sort of faction of the quote unquote conversation an actual seat at the table when the actual vote happens, right? Like that to me is the major tactical benefit of a Green Party run with a big name on the ticket, is that you actually get to cause disruption on the day the final votes are counted. Not a primary, like an intramural sort of scrimmage contest, you know, between people who are all at the end of the day agreeing that they're on the same team. That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything. A Green Party run means a lot more for the reason that I just said. And here, I'll take this one because it speaks to that. Franklin Worsham, this is about dismantling the DNC. Absolutely. Right. That's what it is. That's the bottom line.
That's it.
All righty. So we got some segments that we're going to do. When we did our last post-duopoly show on Monday with our friends at RBN and Hardlands Media, we talked a lot about RFK's Israel comments recently, and part of what made those comments as noteworthy as they were in an especially important context is the fact that they happened just as the Democrats were having this sort of skirmish where one of their members, God forbid, stepped a bit out of line. I'm talking about Pramila Jayapal at a Netroots Nation conference when the event was disrupted by some protesters waving the Palestinian flag. Let's take a look at how she responded to that, just to set this up a little bit.
I'll just leave. Maybe I should just walk off. Guys.
Notice how pissed off whoever that lady is. I don't know who she was, but when the protesters started walking, maybe I'll just leave. Yeah. Just get out of here. This is a progressive group, everybody. Well, watch it.
I'll just leave. Maybe I should just walk off.
Guys, can I say something? Can I say something as somebody that's been in the streets and has participated in a lot of demonstrations? I want you to know that we have been fighting to make it clear that Israel is a racist state, that the Palestinian people deserve self-determination and autonomy, that the dream of a two-state solution is slipping away from us, that it does not even feel possible. It does not even feel possible. And I want you to know that while you may have arguments with whether or not some of us on stage are fighting hard enough, I do want you to know that there is an organized opposition on the other side, and it isn't the people that are on this stage.
Okay, first of all, it's not just on the quote-unquote other side. A lot of it is on your supposed side as well.
Yeah, what the fuck is she talking about? If anything, the Republicans are more rabidly pro-Israel than the Democrats, because you need Israel for Jesus to come back.
Right.
Otherwise, Jesus just keeps smoking a J in heaven.
Well, no, but that's what she's talking about. There's an organized effort on the other side. That's what I took it as the Republicans are rabidly pro-Israel, whereas the Democrats are a divided house. That's what I think she was getting at there. Okay, so then after she stepped out of line with that statement, the Joint House Democratic leadership issued a statement on the relationship between the United States and Israel. This was signed by, of course, party leader Hakeem Jeffries, rabid Zionist, Democratic whip Catherine Clark, Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar, and Vice Chair Ted Lieu released the following statement. Israel is not a racist state. As a Jewish and democratic nation, right, Israel was founded 75 years ago on the principle of complete equality of social and political rights for all of its citizens, irrespective of religion, race, or sex, as codified in its Declaration of Independence. Benjamin Netanyahu is on record saying multiple times, Israel is not the home to all of its people. It is the home to the Jewish people. That is it. That is his statement. John Kerry, during the Obama years, said, as Secretary of State, Israel can either be a Jewish state or a democratic state. It cannot be both. That's John Kerry, hardly a radical. Of course. I mean, this is the most obvious fucking thing in the world. It's the most obvious thing in the world.
How could you possibly have a Jewish state in a majority Arab region and have a legitimate democracy?
Right. Exactly.
That would be impossible.
No. Of course. I'll skip to the end. We're not going to pain ourselves reading this entire thing. Our commitment to a safe and secure Israel as an invaluable partner, ally, and beacon of democracy in the Middle East is ironclad. We look forward to welcoming Israeli President Isaac Herzog to the United States House of Representatives this week. Okay, so they brought her to heel. They got her in line. But the Republicans in the House smelled blood in the water. And so what do? Opportunists that they are, and you can't fault them for this. They're twisting the knife, right? That's what you're really, I mean, that's what you're there to do, right? When you sense weakness on the other side, you have to exploit it. They called a vote on the to basically reaffirm that Israel is not a racist state. So this is from the New York Times. House votes resoundingly to back Israel, rebuking Democratic critics. Republicans rushed to schedule a vote on the measure after a leading progressive Democrat, Jayapal, who we just showed, condemned Israel as racist ahead of an address to Congress by the country's president. We're not going to read this whole thing, obviously, but we will read this, just a few paragraphs here. So the House on Tuesday overwhelmingly passed a resolution pledging unfailing support for Israel, condemning anti-Semitism, and declaring that the country is neither racist nor an apartheid state, in an implicit rebuke of Democrats who have criticized the nation ahead of an address by its president to a joint session of Congress. What that paragraph leaves out is that very, very few Democrats have criticized the nation of Israel. Republican members raced to put the resolution on the floor this week after Representative Pramila Jayapal, a Democrat of Washington and the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, called Israel a racist state, as we just played, prompting condemnations from leaders of both parties. Ms. Jayapal later walked back her comments, saying that she had not meant to condemn the idea of Israel, but only the policies of its current government. But the GOP pushed ahead with the vote anyway in a move Democrats denounced as politically opportunistic, even as most lined up to support it. When we mean most, we mean almost all. 10 Democrats declined to back the resolution, which passed by a vote of 412 to 9. With one voting present, and here's the cherry on top. Ms. Jayapal supported it. So Ms. Jayapal ended up voting yes on the resolution to affirm unfailing and unconditional support to Israel, which is not an apartheid state. So Jayapal, who started this whole thing, here, let's just play this one more time.
That Israel is a racist state, that the Palestinian people deserve self-determination and autonomy, that the dream of a two-state solution is slipping away from us, that it does not even feel possible. It does not even feel possible. And I want you to know that while you may have arguments with whether or not some of us on stage are fighting hard enough.
While you may have arguments with whether some of us on stage are fighting hard enough.
Jane, you ignorant slut.
After making that statement, you got cucked by party leadership, and then you voted yes on the Republicans' resolution to affirm support for the state of Israel. The squad all voted no on it. It was Ilhan Omar. Yeah, no, they all did. They were some of the 9. Omar said she's voting no because this was introduced by MAGA Republicans, right? Which is a bit of a cop-out because what that erases is the fact that almost all of the Democratic Party voted yes as well. But Jayapal didn't even have it in her to do that. She just total surrender. And that's what those activists were pissed off about there, was the fact that at the end of the day, 19 out of 20 Democrats will bend the knee. And most of the ones who don't only don't because they can afford not to, right? Because the support is overwhelming anyway. So to go back to the first thing we covered this evening.
Oh yeah.
This is why Justice Democrats can't raise money, right? This is why Justice Democrats can't raise money anymore. That's exactly it. Oh, beautiful.
We hit it. Yeah, well, that's what they did with AOC. That was the moment they broke her, right? I know a lot of people think she was an op, but yo, man, if you watch that video where she's crying about that Iron Dome vote, that was the moment, man. That was the moment. They broke her. That was it. She was never the same after that. Don't get me wrong. She wasn't doing a great job up to that point, but I think that was the moment of truth for her, where like, okay, once I signed this contract with my blood, there's no going back. That's it. They got me. Once I take this vote, they own me. And she did it. And that's it. If you notice, I said when I saw Ilhan Omar, she's another one, man. She was on CNN, I guess. We played a clip. She seemed like they fucking replaced her with a Stepford wife robot of a Muslim activist. Like she just didn't even seem human anymore. She's sitting there. Yes. And so with that dead look in her eyes, with that vapid smile, I mean, it was like, what did they do to you? Jesus. Like, what the fuck? Did they take you in a back room and beat you with fucking towels with soap bars in them? Like, what the hell did they do to turn you into that? And with AOC, yeah. I mean, as much as she's been going in that direction for a long time, now she's a shell of the person who entered Congress. It's amazing. And, you know, I mean, tying it all back together, that's why Justice Democrats is going bankrupt.
Right. Exactly.
Because now we saw the result of supporting this. Right.
You have these activists come into the space who are clearly upset that the progressives who they put there to fight for issues like this aren't fighting hard enough. Jayapal says, I understand some of you don't think we're fighting hard enough, but we're trying. You know, I'm trying to have it recognized that Israel is a racist state. Hakeem Jeffries, how dare you say that? The Republicans call a vote to affirm that Israel is not a racist state. Jayapal herself turns around and votes for the fucking bill. Like, what do you expect? What do you expect? I mean, how embarrassing is that? How embarrassing is that? It's just pathetic. It's just absolutely pathetic. And what's even more pathetic is that she kept her job as head of the CPC after the Build Back Better thing, after breaking that promise. There weren't people in that caucus who said, hey, listen, we knew that the Build Back Better thing would fail, right? I mean, we all knew that would fail. But look at the humiliation that you caused us by caving like that. You have to go. No, it doesn't. No, everything just stays exactly the same. It stays exactly the same. There is no movement within the organization.
Well, that's why they do it. That's why they do it, because the only thing that's going to dislodge them or make them have to pay a price would be if the entire system gets overthrown. Otherwise, shit, man, even if they get voted out of office, they did what they were told. They'll get a job in private business through contacts. They can make those calls. If they cross these people, they can't make those calls. Then they're going to have to go out and, you know, sing for their supper and, you know, panhandle and, you know, do little gigs at the DSA. Those gigs don't pay.
Right, exactly.
You know, you want to get in on those fucking defense contractor gigs. You gotta shut your mouth. You want those appointments at a university. If that just doesn't jive with your image to go work for Northrop Grumman, same deal, man. You got to call up. Hey, Nancy, man, I shut my mouth. I took the vote on Israel. Can you get me an appointment at Stanford?
Right. Indeed. Let's take a couple of super chats here, folks, and then we'll move on to our CNN Cornel, Carville, Anderson Cooper segment that is up next. We put that one up already, but thank you, Franklin. Black Freud, thank you for the $10. Sir, we appreciate that very much. Nobody other than Biden talks about the fact that there will no longer be a white majority in America in a few years. Think that loss has anything to do with this ghoulish, Aldeanish stuff? Oh, you mean the fact that there is a demographic shift? I think some of it might be that. I think some of it might be that racial anxiety. Like I said, I saw a real militancy post 9/11. That's when I noticed a real shift. You know, that's when country music sort of stop. Like, it was very benign until that point. A lot of the 90s country artists, and even going back to the 80s and 70s, there was something wholesome about it, right? And there was always the outlaw genre, but it wasn't this. It wasn't what it is now.
But it's been a long time since they've been writing kind of working class anthems.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. It was more of a benign genre thing in the recent history. It's been a while since you had any sort of like populist left political expression.
Yes,
coming from there.
Not really since like the 70s.
Right, indeed. Courtney, thanks for the $5. Even when I disagree with you, city boys, LOL, I still support you. Well, thank you, Courtney. We appreciate that very much. And you're from Jersey originally, right?
Yeah, she's from Jersey.
From Jersey. Democrats are right wing, not the left. West 2024 says Esoteric Teachings. Thank you very much for the donation, my friend. We'll take a couple more of these as the show progresses. Thank you guys very much for being here. Hit that like button. Let's get some more people in here. Please hit that subscribe button if you have not already. We're up over 11,000 subscribers now, thanks to all you guys, so we appreciate that very much. All right, we all know what we're talking about here. Cornel West appeared on CNN a few days ago on the Caitlin Collins show, but now he came to the real heavy hitter of the network, Mr. Anderson Cooper. They had a 13-minute conversation. Here's a bit about Ukraine and Iraq that I found particularly infuriating.
We had someone in the chat say he's falling in love with Caitlin Collins against his will. All I'm going to say is you're a sick fuck, Fink. You're a sick bastard. It's like falling in love with a doll.
Yeah, indeed. All right, here's some of the conversation between Anderson Cooper and Green Party candidate Cornel West.
The foreign minister. I just spoke to the foreign minister of Ukraine. We're going to have that interview later on. I think if you said to him, you're standing with the people of Ukraine in solidarity, and you're saying that they are just victims in this proxy war, he would say, you're out of your mind. I mean, they are thankful. They are thankful for NATO. They are thankful for the U.S. You can call it the American empire, but
the ones that are alive are thankful for NATO and thankful for the U.S. Bakhmut, 75,000 of them dead, one city by itself.
The ones who talked to Anderson Cooper on TV.
Yeah, right. The ones who you're in touch with. Who did he say he was in touch with? The Minister of
Ukraine? Driving around Kiev in a Mercedes, according to Cy Hirsch.
Exactly. The ruling class of Ukraine, who's siphoning off a lot of the money that we're sending them for, weapons. They're very, very thankful for NATO and the West. The ones who have died on the front lines, I don't know if they could do it over again, how thankful they would be to NATO and the West. It's unfortunate that I have to make these points while he's rocking back and forth. I'd like to see a little more of the left jab.
But
he's dominant.
they are thankful for all these countries rallying to their side. I mean, I've been there. You've probably been there as well. I mean, it's a horrible. It's an invasion. I mean, of killing of civilians in cities.
Oh no, it is a criminal invasion. I'm not denying it's a criminal invasion. But what I'm saying is, you go back to the men's talks. You go back to March, 1 month after the war began, my brother. I'm calling for ceasefire. I don't want to see the suffering.
You can call for ceasefire. Vladimir Putin isn't really listening to what you say or I say or anybody says. He's doing what he wants to do, just like he slaughtered. I mean, you saw what he did to Grozny. You saw what he did to Grozny in the 90s. I mean, he flattened that city. Civilians were trapped in that city. No, the world didn't come to the rescue of Grozny. He did exactly what he wanted to do. I mean, unchecked, he will slaughter people.
Well, I mean, unchecked, he will slaughter folk. Unchecked, what we did in Iraq was slaughtering people. Unchecked, what we've done in other places. Unchecked,
but sir,
a variety
Dr.
of
West,
other empires
Dr.
do
West,
that. Nation states do that, though.
No,
brother,
I understand.
And they're wrong. And when they're wrong, you have to pull up. You have to point it out.
I respect you. I love you. But I do think it's inappropriate to compare the Russian bombing of Grozny and what we witnessed there with the war in Iraq. I mean, to say that
is that right? Is that right, Anderson Cooper? It is inappropriate. I mean, what an outrageous statement that is. What a jaw-droppingly outrageous, disgusting statement that is. So much so, I decided to edit together a little clip. We're going to get back to this interview in a moment, but there's a little clip I put together in response to that because I just could not believe that he said that. It shouldn't have shocked me. It really shouldn't have. I mean, that's par for the course on corporate media. I don't know why I was so taken aback by it.
They literally, when the war broke out, for a second, it was stunning to me because they spend so much time virtue signaling about their racial sensitivity. For a minute there, the mask dropped. Remember, you had the reporter who said, it's very strange to see this in a country where, frankly, they look like us.
Yeah, right, exactly. In a country where they look like us, where this is a European country where this is happening. We expect this kind of barbarism when it's inflicted on people in the third world. That's the coding here. That's the coding. Why does he not see them as equivalent? I mean, partly it's because he's on the inside. He's a Roman living in Rome. Right, exactly.
Right. What the Germanic tribes do is barbarism. What we do is civilized. Right. But so there's that. But it's also, I believe, based on the evidence. As soon as this war broke out, before they got a hold of themselves, they all were talking about how fucking white these people are. Now it's a travesty. That was amazing to me that they, even if they thought that, didn't realize you can't say that out loud because they spent so much time
it all goes away.
Attacking people for saying shit like that out loud. Like, how did they not realize you can't say that?
When you support war, there's nothing you can't say. There's nothing you can't say because there is no institutional thrust behind any oppositional force. Like, you're just not going to get You're not going to get called out by anyone with the power to do anything to you for saying the wrong thing. That's why all of that stuff just goes out the window when they're talking about war. We're going to get back to the interview in a moment, but I had to just introduce my own evidence here in the form of this short clip, which got to be up around 400,000 views on Twitter by now. That's why I'll play it for you right here. So a little bit of a game break, folks. And if you're on Twitter, please share this video around.
It's inappropriate to compare the Russian bombing of Grozny and what we witnessed there with the war in Iraq. I don't think it's accurate to compare the pummeling of a city by Russian artillery with civilians inside, pummeling every single day with the intention of just destroying and flattening a city, with actions the U.S. took.
There you have it, folks. See, that's why I'm calm tonight, because I don't have to blow a gasket screaming about it, because I think that video says everything you need to know. What do you mean? That's different from pummeling a city? You worked for CNN at the time. It was called a shock and awe campaign. Shock and awe. The initial bombing mission in Baghdad was meant as a violent show of force to demoralize Iraqis and bend them to our will. There is a word for that. That's called terrorism. That's called terrorism. And that is what we did in Iraq in 2003. And how fucking ignorant and asinine are you that you would say, well, what the Russians did to Grozny is not comparable to what we did in Iraq. It was not nearly as bad. This was a shock. Look at what I just showed you. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable that he said that. Let's go back to the interview. We'll watch a little more.
Innocents are killed. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the horrible things happen.
Horrible things happen. Horrible things happen,
what we
says Anderson Vanderbilt.
With the war in Iraq.
We got to start calling them
to say that innocents innocents are killed. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the horrible things happen.
Half a million Iraqis killed, my brother.
Well,
500,000.
Yeah, listen, I was there. I mean,
I know.
What wasn't that just the children?
I certainly understand.
Well, you're talking about the 500,000 Iraqi children that were killed as a result of the sanctions. But in the initial bombing, in the initial shock and awe campaign, just that night that the war started, what was it, March 16th, 2003, something like that, mid-March. In the subsequent days, about 7,000 Iraqi civilians died from the initial bombing raid, more than double the casualties on 9/11, which is something that we blamed on them. And I love some of the people responded to me on Twitter by saying, well, it's different because with the Russian bombing campaign, they were bombing in response to a false flag terrorist attack, which they themselves committed. Okay. All right. Point taken. Different situation. Different situation. I stand corrected. I stand corrected.
There's another thing about a lot of the people who signal all of the concern for people of color. That ends right at the water's edge, man. They almost never have a foreign policy vision. And they talk like this, like Anderson Cooper. It's different when we do it. That's their foreign policy vision. It's different when we do it. We do it because we have to. We don't really want to. And anyway, we're rescuing these people from horrible regimes and dictators. And
he goes back to, I know Saddam Hussein was awful too.
He does. I mean, he drops that in there.
Unbelievable. Just absolutely incredible.
Well, which, look, that is always, I mean, at least in the modern era, old school ancient world imperialism, they didn't need a justification. They did it because they could. By the time you get to the British Empire, they feel a need to justify themselves. And that's when you get this idea that we're, destroying the village in order to save it, right? Because we're liberating them. We're bringing them civilization. We're enlightening them. That Victorian era idea of why we do this, that's still the justification. And in the modern world, all the more so, because you can't just say, as Donald Trump did, that was the problem, really, that a lot of them had with him. Yeah, no, we need the oil. Yeah, we're going in there. You just say that shit straight out. Nothing about, some grand moral scheme, which, is just obvious. If we really invaded countries because of the way the governments treat their people, there are a lot of countries we'd be in right now.
Right. Of course.
I also saw a lot of Americans getting killed, and I saw, the horrors of Saddam Hussein. I'm just saying, I don't think it's accurate to compare.
Did you? Or did you hear about
pummeling of a city by Russian artillery with civilians inside, pummeling every single day with the intention?
Listen to this idiocy. Listen to this incredible idiocy.
I'm just saying, I don't think it's accurate to compare the pummeling of a city by Russian artillery with civilians inside, pummeling every single day with the intention of just destroying and flattening
the pummeling of a city. The pummeling of a city? Are you fucking, I mean, it's just, it is shocking. It is absolutely shocking. I know I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry, but it's just unfucking-believable. We called it a shock and awe campaign. That's footage that's famous. That's famous footage. CNN has watermarked some of that footage on YouTube. That's why I couldn't use that source. That footage is everywhere. Everybody has seen that. Everybody knows that. What is that if not the pummeling of a city with no regard for civilian casualties? That was called a shock and awe campaign. Sorry, we do have to finish the interview because we got other stuff to do. But I'm like in a loop here.
Well, you get this
actions
from your father.
Yeah, right.
There's your father in you.
Yeah, exactly.
Civilians inside, pummeling every single day with the intention of just destroying and flattening a city with actions the U.S. took. I mean, I don't know. Look, wars, horrible things happen in wars.
Horrible things happen in war. Okay,
look, my great grandfather was one of the robber barons that made this country the shithole that it is. And I am at least 6 generations removed from being qualified to opine on the matters of great import to the people of this nation. That's why they gave me this job. If I actually had any insights to share, they wouldn't let me within a mile of this desk.
Right. Well, exactly. And look, we'll play more of that interview on Friday. That was the only part I cut because, like I said at the top of the show, I don't want to do all Cornel stuff all the time. So we do have to get into more of that. That was just more a reaction to just how unbelievably ignorant Anderson Cooper has to be to say that, and how unbelievably pathetic his audience must be to take him seriously after hearing that. And Cornel should have jumped down his throat right then and there. He tried to get in the word 500 million dead Iraqis, my brother. Like, he tried to get in there, but he should have been much more forceful. When he starts talking this shit about how, well, you know, they didn't just pummel us. We didn't just pummel a city. And into what? You have to jump down his throat there. Like, it's really, really a horrible thing to say on the air, and to not, and that is an opportunity to communicate to the viewers that this guy, who they consider an authority on perspective, is a New World Order hatchet man. It was Anderson Cooper who played a really, really critical role in killing the Bernie Sanders momentum between Nevada and Super Tuesday. He's the one who gave him the, you know, I heard you love Castro line on 60 Minutes, right? So, I mean, this is a guy who, I don't know, maybe it's because he's a Vanderbilt, maybe he feels he's on the take in some way. Beyond that, who the hell knows? But that is an elite perspective that ought to have no credibility outside his dinner parties or outside the studio at CNN. You have to dismantle that when you hear it. That's why I made that video, and that's why it's gotten, you know, got to be close to 500,000 views by now, I would hope.
Well, that's, if you remember, back when AOC actually was willing to be adversarial with the Democratic Party establishment. Anderson Cooper did an interview with her where, oh my God, was his aristocratic breeding showing. She was talking about, you know, just basic things of taxing the rich and stuff. And Anderson Cooper looked like he was going to shit himself. Like, he was asking her questions like he was interviewing Charles Manson. Like, he had this look on her face. So what is your plan? Is it to raise taxes to what? Like, it was just this, you know, his whole tone was he was just projecting like he's talking to a dangerous, crazy person. If you live in New York, as I do, you see him every now and then. And I promise, because I ran into him about a year ago and I was on a tour and I couldn't say anything. Next time I see him, I don't care if I'm on a tour or I'm not on a tour. I am walking up to him with my phone and I'm fucking with Anderson Cooper. You heard it here first. Nothing violent, you two. Nothing violent.
No, you're just
within the law.
I'm
going to ask him some questions.
Some questions. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to ask him some. Next time I see Anderson Cooper, I promise you, I am going to ask him some questions.
Oh, yeah. By the way, speaking of New York City, our friend Jose Vega, who's the subject of our dissident documentary, which we're working on now, he's going to be giving a speech at a peace rally outside the United Nations on August 6th. I do intend to go there and film that for the documentary. So if anybody wants to come hang out outside the UN on August 6th, I will be there. But I will let you guys know details on that on Friday's show, and we will plug it a few times between now and then because we're going to be on the air a bunch of times. So I'll have exact details for you guys
I'll go.
coming up. Yeah, that should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. And I think that'd be a great thing to have in the film, the speech outside the UN.
Absolutely.
So we will film that for
we got a show that night, you know.
I know we do have a show that night because it is a Sunday. So we'll figure out how to do it. Maybe we can do it from your apartment. Maybe
that would be funny.
Maybe we'll do it both. Place. Yeah, we'll huddle around the laptop screen and do it. Exactly. We'll have like the breaking points desk set up there. Indeed.
Or I'll put you. You know, I have like 3 rooms.
Yeah, maybe I can go into
one
a
of the
different
other.
room. We just can't scream loud so we bleed into the other person's microphone. That'd be funny. Yeah. Nicole Vance, thank you for the $5. Angry about something. What are you angry about? From the Anderson Cooper thing? I think we started that segment about a half hour ago. No, this was the Israeli vote. Well, I sympathize with that. DC, I see they're getting around the censors there with that message. Yes, so we talked about that a little bit on the Post-Duopoly show. We've talked about that before, where Russell has said, you know, the state of Israel is very much, it's like a trauma response, right? Like you had a state that was founded in the wake of this sort of violent, awful persecution, and then they became a state that commits that against people in the region. And so, you know, it's an awful thing, obviously. I was waiting for Russell. That's why I slowed down there because it looked like Russell was going to say something, but that's what he was doing. He was looking for the opening. He was looking for the sound drop. I thought you were going to talk, so I'm like, should I shut up? And then, no, okay, you're not talking. I guess I'll stumble through the rest of this thought. Dwayne Vogel, thanks for the $5. Wes is a lover, not a fighter. We need a fighter. Well, it's interesting that you say that because one of the things that I'm seeing take shape in these early interviews. And we'll get into this a little bit because we have another segment here where they bring on James Carville. Carville doesn't know how to do this because Carville is just a horrific little gremlin. But the others, like Anderson Cooper, Caitlin Collins, some of the other interviews that he's been on, like a lot of the Democrat adjacent media outlets are in this phase where I feel like because they have a rapport with him, they're trying to like charm him out of the race. They're in this phase where they're like, Cornel, we love you, man. We have a lot of respect for you, but aren't you being a spoiler here? Like they're trying to sort of schmooze him into playing ball. And as
we like you, but you don't want us to stop liking you, do you?
Exactly. That's kind of what I sense on a lot of these interviews. And I think as the days and months on the calendar progress, you're going to see less of that. Like they're not going to be as nice to him by this time next year as they are now. They're going to start getting extremely hostile. And yes, he's going to have to get hostile back. Absolutely. I think so. Not hostile in a mean way necessarily, like not go looking for a fight, but no, you have to be willing to throw a jab, when they come at you like that. You have to be willing to get angry.
There's the thing, and I think this is what some people who have been critical of West and supporting West are identifying. Like West has and I'm not saying this is what he is, but certainly the function he has served for them up to this point is what you're saying. It's good for the Democratic Party to have some people like Howard Dean around. They like when things like George Floyd happen, to bring on Cornel West to say something very moving and profound about it, as he will, to make them all look like they're much more left than they are, and they care much more about this than they do. That's his function in the ecosystem. Underneath these questions is, are you really going to blow that shit up? Because if you really go this way, we can't bring you on no more about no George Floyd kind of shit. Not ever again.
Right.
Not ever again. If Donald Trump or whatever GOP wins and you were in that race as a third party candidate at that time, your relationship with us is done. You can never be brought on for commentary again, ever.
Of course. No, he's going to be, he's already on track to be the spoiler candidate. If the polls are accurate, he's already above 5 in a lot of these polls, where Biden starts out in the lead, and then once you factor in Cornel West, it becomes a dead even, or Trump plus 1 or 2. So look, that's obviously something that they are going to put front and center 10 times louder than they are right now, and they're already starting it now. But it's no longer going to be, we love and respect Dr. West, but it's going to be, they are going to go at him.
You're right. This is their opening pitch.
Right. This is the opening. This is the, are you sure you want to do this? Because we like you, and you wouldn't want to put us in a position where we can't like you anymore, would you?
You wouldn't want to put us in a position where we have to start digging through all your dirty laundry back to like the moment you popped out of your mama and see what we can use against you, right?
Right. Exactly. So that's going to be something he's going to have to deal with. But after Cornel West's interview with Anderson Cooper, which is getting a lot of play now, obviously, Anderson Cooper went to his friend fresh out of the bayous and swamps of Louisiana. This creature, this thing, James Carville, brings him on to talk about Cornel West as a spoiler candidate. Now, a lot of the mainstream pundits have been trying to sort of charm Cornel West into playing ball, right? Are you sure you want to do this? We like you. We respect you. You know, we love you, man. But you're really taking
more
a
of that
chance here.
George Floyd moral vision stuff,
right? More of the kumbaya unity stuff, right? Less of the threatening to disrupt democracy thing, right? So they go to James Carville, who just doesn't have it in him not to be a completely obnoxious prick every minute of every day. It takes Carville half a sentence before insulting Dr. West. Let's hear James Carville do the post game of the Cornel West Anderson Cooper interview.
Dr. West, what is your reaction to? You hear Dr. West? What is your reaction to what he had to say? Do you think he rejects the term spoiler candidate? Do you think he could be?
Well, first of all, he's obviously an accomplished scholar, academic. He seems to be a very charming man. And he's also a minister to the threat of the continued constitutional order in the United States.
See, he gave him half a sentence. Half a sentence is all the diplomacy this guy's capable of, right? Well, you know, he's a scholar and a charming man, and he's also a menace to the future of our democratic institutions.
Obviously, an accomplished scholar, academic. He seems to be a very charming man. And he's also a minister to the threat of the continued constitutional order in the United States. And if I say that because look what Ralph Nader.
By the way, this guy ran the Bill Clinton war room in 1992. This guy headed up a task force within the Bill Clinton campaign to silence any bimbos who came forward, quote unquote. Bimbo eruptions. That's how they called. That's how they talked about these women, not mine, not me. These bimbos were women who had made credible accusations of sexual violence against his good friend, Bill Clinton. So James Carville is a menace to humanity. He is a stain on the human race. This guy's a worthless, vile piece of garbage. And he comes out and says, Cornel West, yeah, he's a handsome, well, what does he say? He's a scholar, he's a charming man, but now he's a menace to democracy. Whenever these people say someone is a threat to democracy, what they mean is they're a threat to the Democratic Party. That's what they mean. When they say democracy, that's code for Democratic Party, right?
Well, and this, you know, so much of this, we're looking at more corporate media tonight than we usually do on the show. You know, this is on the occasion that you get stuck arguing with a liberal, like this is why they fucking their brains are like pudding. Because this is what they take in, like that James Carville formulation. This is something you have to give him credit for, right? He really has his finger on the pulse of the shit libs. That is a very shit lib kind of formulation. They like that kind of thing. That's their idea of nuance, right? Yeah, now I have a lot of respect for Cornel West, but he's going to bring down the constitutional order with this with this nonsense that he's doing. It's really upsetting because I like him. I like him a lot. He made me cry once, but now I don't know why he wants to burn down the country and make Trump the president again.
Right.
A charming man, and he's also a minister to the threat of the continued constitutional order in the United States.
By the way, this is the least unhinged thing he says in this rant, by the way. We'll wait till you see what comes next.
And if I say that because look what Ralph Nader was directly responsible for the election of George W. Bush, which brought about this horrific Iraq war and this horrific...
Oh, the horrific Iraq war, because your host here doesn't seem to remember it as being all that horrific. Right? Anderson Cooper just said to Cornel West in the interview, well, you know, yeah, terrible things happen in war, but you really can't compare what we did in Iraq to the Russian bombing of Grozny in the 90s. No, I mean, that's apples and oranges.
Well, you know what? Set aside the Supreme Court. Set aside this. Forget about the Supreme Court in Gore v. Bush, right? Forget about that. You are a political strategist. You know damn well that Jeb Bush, the candidate's brother, who was the governor of Florida at the time, ran around Florida disenfranchising black people left and right for vague reasons to the tune of tens of thousands of people, far more than the margin in that race. Why don't you ever butterfly ballots? Forget about that even. The brother of the candidate rigged that fucking election in the state. This is something that's down the memory hole. You'll never hear talked about now.
Right.
They were together, obviously, watching the election returns. And when it looked good for Gore, Jeb apologized. He apologized to the family. They never talk about it. What is he apologizing for? What does he have to do with how a free and fair election turns out? What did he have to apologize for? He's apologizing for not rigging the state good enough. So why the fuck are you care so much about democracy and the Democratic Party and the fact that George Bush shouldn't have been president? What the fuck are you talking about, Ralph Nader? Aren't you talking about Jeb Bush?
Yeah, plus you guys don't really seem to look back on those Bush years with all that much regret. Anderson Cooper just told Cornel West, well, come on, let's be fair. You know, bad things happen in war, right?
Well,
I mean, maybe he wasn't watching. Maybe he wasn't watching.
Well, what was the real difference?
Maybe he was picking the fucking crawfish out of his teeth getting ready for this interview. Maybe he didn't see the actual interview where Anderson Cooper told Cornel West, hey, you know, the Iraq War, yeah, bad things happen, but come on, let's be reasonable. Let's not compare our war crimes to Russia's war crimes, right? That's inappropriate. Inappropriate was the word he used.
Of course, because it's us.
Inappropriate, right? Exactly.
Economic downturn we had, among other things. Jill Stein, who's his campaign manager, is almost certainly an agent of the Russian government. If you don't believe me, somebody at home Google photo General Flynn, Vladimir Putin, Jill Stein. She was hosted by the Russians prior to her.
If you don't believe me, Google photo General Flynn, Vladimir Putin, Jill Stein. The fact that they were seen together in a room is incontrovertible proof that she is an agent of the Russian state. Really? That's incontrovertible proof. Yeah. Incontrovertible proof. Yeah, Vladimir Putin wants to undermine our democracy so badly that he chose to infiltrate a party that in its decades-long existence has accomplished little more than electing a mayor in a small town in upstate New York. Like, the Green Party is a virtually powerless organization. You're telling me Jill Stein is an agent of the Russian state? She's almost certainly an agent of the Russian state. And if you don't believe me, go to Google and look up where she's seen sitting at a table with Vladimir Putin. Guess who else has been seen sitting at tables with Putin? Hillary Clinton has been seen sitting at tables with Vladimir Putin. How do we know there wasn't more to that image than what meets the eye? Right? I mean, what a fucking unhinged maniac.
Well, hey, I mean, I could just as easily have recommended another book that is somewhere back here. Yeah, there it is. Clinton Cash. Oh, whoops. I'm promoting Douglas Murray here. Clinton Cash. This gets into a lot of ties between the Clintons and Russia. Quite a few. In fact, a lot of people say that the reason that they focused so much on smearing Trump with Russia connections was they were pulling a Karl Rove. They wanted to take that focus off of their
No, that's documented. They were
Russians.
afraid. They were afraid. That's not. Yeah, no, that's been actually very, very thoroughly documented that they saw as Hillary's weak spot her ties to Russia. And so, yes, as Russell says, the old Karl Rove playbook is take what should be a liability for your campaign and make it a liability for
the other
campaign.
Yeah,
right?
It's judo.
Exactly.
And I also, you know, a lot of our people have probably seen this before. But for those of you who haven't, just to remind you of who James Carville is. So he was running Bill Clinton's campaign. So presumably this was his idea. Okay. So these are the people who talk about the racism of the Republicans that they have to save you from. This is Bill Clinton announcing his campaign with, as you can see, a phalanx of black prisoners behind him. But the kicker here, speaking of coded locations to choose to hold an event at. This is Stony Mountain Correctional Facility. Stony Mountain, some of you might know, is the birthplace of the KKK. Certainly, Bill Clinton knew that. James Carville, who, as the campaign manager, would have made the arrangements to do this, and it was probably his idea, certainly knew that. And this is who's sitting here on TV right now, smearing Cornel West by implication and association as somehow, at best, a useful idiot, the man who set this up.
Yep.
In 2016. So, people are going to have to decide, do we want to continue under our Constitution? Because Donald Trump is telling us that very clearly, is bragging about the fact that he doesn't want to live under the Constitution anymore. And it's very clear that the only thing that Dr. West's candidacy can do is help elect Donald Trump. It's nothing. I don't think any of that's inarguable, nor is it arguable that Jill Stein had deep relationships with the Russian government.
So let me ask you, because the argument that Ralph Nader put forward, the argument that Jill Stein has put forward, Dr. West mentioned it again tonight, that a lot of those people who voted for Jill Stein or Ralph Nader would not have voted for any of the mainstream candidates, and therefore they did not suck away votes from Hillary Clinton or would not hurt votes from Biden here.
Well, how could I argue with that? I'm sure that some of it's true, some of it's not true.
I mean, there's no way to know whether somebody could tell a pollster, oh, no, of course I wouldn't vote for any other candidate, but who knows how people would vote.
I can't disprove that.
Okay, well, if you can't disprove that, then you really can't prove that Cornel West is going to cost Joe Biden the election. Now, of course, my response to this, as you all know by now, is we wash our hands of it. We say, yeah, there's a good chance he will. We don't care. We don't care. Non-responsive, as John Heilman over on MSNBC would say.
Fuck that fucking parakeet.
Irrelevant. Right. Fuck that fucking parakeet. Doesn't matter. We're running anyway. Look at how paralyzed they are. That's what's great about this Cornel West candidacy so far. Regardless of his performance. Look at how scared they are, but how unable they are to do anything about it. All they can do is bitch about it. They cannot do anything else because they can't push Biden out of the way. They can't make some excuse for Biden to withdraw because then they got a Kamala problem. Like, they can't do anything. All they can do is fret and bitch to their friends about it. And to their audience. Like, there's nothing any of them can do. They're just completely fucked. The only way that they can avoid disaster is by convincing Cornel to lay down his arms. And that, to answer Ellen's question, and anybody else who has doubts about why we should back Cornel West, that is as big a reason as any. Because we have to signal to Cornel West, as many people have to signal to Cornel West right now, that we have his back. Because what we cannot afford to happen is for these ghouls to bully him into stepping down. Because once that happens, they've won.
And if you look at this in the last two shows, we've had Android pretending to be human, Caitlin Collins doing this panicked interview with him, in so much as the servers in her face allow her to express panic. And here you have Anderson Cooper doing this panicked interview about Cornel West. You have Anderson Cooper interview Cornel West. As far as I'm concerned, our theory of the case of anyone who backed this as a kind of way to burn down the system, we've been vindicated. Have you seen that they're not even paying attention to Marianne? They bring her on every now and then as a joke. And RFK, I don't even see them bring him on. They talk about him more. I think they're afraid he's going to say something about the jab that they don't want him to say, so they don't bring him on at all, really. I mean, almost never do they bring RFK onto any of these channels. At most, they'll mention him. Look how much fucking attention Cornel West is getting. And I say it's the Trump principle. Matt Taibbi described perfectly what a lot of the secret of Trump's success was. He said he identified the vulnerability in the Death Star that is the American media. They can't help but cover a story that's going to get them viewers. They can't resist it. Even if they know that it's going to hurt them, they can't turn away. They have to cover it. I honestly didn't expect it to work this well or this fast, but it seems like that's happening with Cornel West, that like it's such a story that it seems like they can't look away from it.
Well, that's the remarkable thing, is how quickly they have begun to utterly melt down over this.
Right.
We're not even past Labor Day of the year before the election.
Right.
We're in the summer of 2023. They usually ignore everything at this phase. At this phase, the presidential campaign is usually like a side story, right? Because there haven't even been primary debates yet. We are so early on in this process. And for them to be fretting over this much, this early, is a terrific sign. Let's let them keep going.
Nor what I want to, but what I do know, there was Russian help that were telling black voters in Detroit to vote at the wrong place.
All right, easy. I'm going to cut you off halfway through that because I don't want you spewing anything that's going to trip the censor on this fucking channel. I'd hate to get thrown off the air because of this fucking prick, right? But yeah, I told them to vote the wrong. How many people came forward and said that they were actually given the wrong information about when to vote after the election? How many people came? You didn't hear fuck all about that. You didn't hear fuck all about it. He's such a fucking whiny little bitch, this guy. All of them. They're just the most repulsive people on the planet. And what is the insinuation now? Because Jill Stein sat at a table with Vladimir Putin, you're now saying that Cornel West is somehow implicated in a foreign plot to subvert the next like that is what you're saying. That is what you're saying. But look at this patchwork case that you're trying to make for this.
Vote on Wednesday and not Tuesday. I do know. I do know that Jill Stein was in Moscow, was sitting with General Michael Flint, with Vladimir Putin, was on Russian TV from Red Square, attacking the United States herself. And I do know, I'm told, that's his campaign manager, and it's the same outfit that cost us the election in 2000, could have very well cost us the election in 2016. And I'm just sitting here with a clear present warning: don't fall for this. Do not fall for this. Only bad can come about this.
What's hilarious about this is that he's really preaching to a choir of the converted, and
who's watching CNN?
That's the thing, and that's the thing where like I don't even know, as much as I enjoy watching them panic. So like I enjoy watching them interview Cornel West because it's just fun to watch them quiver. Like, I don't know what the upside is really for him to go on CNN, because like part of why I think the Democratic Party is dead is because I think that the viewers of CNN, which are Democratic primary voters, are unreachable, right? So like, I don't know what the efficacy is for Cornel West to go on the Anderson Cooper show. I mean, I guess there's no such thing as bad press to a certain extent, right? But I don't really know what the payoff is.
You know what? I'm going to answer that. I have said many times on this show, I was as shitlib as much of a corporate media addled Democratic vote blue no matter who person as you're going to meet. And you know what? Bernie Sanders went on those shows and he reached me. He made me think.
I mean, that's fair enough. In that case, though, like if that's the goal, being there, then I think what apparently was Jimmy's critique is probably right, that you have to be more confrontational, right? You have to be more forceful, because Cornel handled Caitlin Collins fairly well. He did most of the talking there. Caitlin Collins is not the pro that Anderson Cooper is. She got the job a few weeks ago. This guy's been in the game for 30 years, right? He knows how to dominate a conversation. And I think, unfortunately, for most of that conversation, he got a lot more of the talking in. And so that would be some advice for next time. Is a Rumble rant. Enjoying your Anderson Cooper coverage. You guys rock. Well, thank you, Bonzo Beans, over there on Rumble. Thank you. Appreciate that. And thank you for and Janice over there on Rumble for becoming a monthly supporter through Rumble. So thank you guys all. very much for your support over there. We're going to read some more super chats over here in just a moment. But just to put a button on this segment, this guy talking about how Jill Stein conspired with the Russians to sabotage the 2016 election. What this leaves out is the fact that Jill Stein, and this pissed me off big time when she did this. It really pissed me off. And I still haven't really forgiven her for this to this day, honestly. If you remember, Jill Stein raised $900,000, more than $900,000, for recounts in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, the states that Trump won narrowly. I said, why are you doing that? This feels like you're apologizing. It feels like you're admitting that you cost Hillary the presidency, and this is your way of saying you're sorry. Because she did not finance recounts in states where Trump won by a narrower margin than, I'm sorry, I fucked that up. She did not finance recounts in states that Clinton won by a narrower margin than the states that Trump won in the Rust Belt. So she won New Hampshire by a much smaller raw vote margin than Trump won Pennsylvania. So if this is all about election integrity, why wouldn't you finance a recount in New Hampshire? Right? She only financed recounts in states where the Democrat lost. And I thought it was a really stupid thing to do. But why would she do that if she were being paid by the Russians to tilt the election to Trump? $900,000, that was the cost of the Michigan recount alone. Right, exactly. The Michigan recount alone cost $900,000. That's a lot of money for the Green Party to raise. Green Party is a piss poor organization. That's
what a lot of our people who have been involved with the Green Party have been saying. You know, our argument is, you know, of course, with Cornel West running, he's going to like quintuple the size of the Green Party. But, you know, it's worth knowing, and we need to learn more about that, honestly.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Let's take some super chats here. And then actually, the next segment is a lot of fun. I think everybody's going to enjoy that one. We're going to do some Chris Cuomo. Cuomo talk.
Fredo.
Exactly.
Now we're never getting him on the show.
Yeah, no.
See, I just blew it.
Zach Boyle, thanks to the $4.99. Brother this, brother that. Wasn't he listening to everyone criticizing RFK Jr.? Brother talks will get you canceled, and that's with our supporters. Yeah, I know. You guys are a more hostile bunch over there. You're more brass-knuckled. Look, I think he could. I think there's merit in what you're saying about him just being more forceful in those settings. I think the brother this, brother that, that's just who he is. I mean, that's, you know. He even called in response to the James Carville thing because Jordan Sheridan actually reached out to him for comment, and he responded to Jordan privately via email, which Jordan put out on his show, I guess. Brother Carville should be ashamed. So even the guys who he hates, he calls brother. I mean, that's just, I think that's you have to sort of just take that for what it's worth at this point. But I do think, yeah, he needed to throw more jabs in that interview for sure. There's no doubt.
Are we going to read the Jordan thing?
I don't have the Jordan thing as an exhibit, but you can read it if you want.
Yeah, I'll pull it.
It was a very short email statement that you do your thing. Yeah, he just responded back to Jordan via email, and it was very, very short. It was like a couple sentences.
All right, so hang on. Oh wait, no, go ahead.
All right, Courtney, thanks for the $5. Can we please trading places Cooper and send him back to his great-grandfather's indentured servitude? Please, I take my great-grandfather's role. Yeah, well, that was one of the things that Russell wanted to ask Anderson Cooper. He wanted to say, do you feel as a Vanderbilt that you're qualified to comment on economic issues that affect middle class, working class, and poor people?
I mean, I know where he lives. He bought this old firehouse from 1865 in the Village across from where the Edgar Allan Poe house is. That's where he lives. I've seen him coming out of there. Like, if you really wanted to like stay there, you would definitely be able to see Anderson Cooper.
Yeah,
not
and
that I'm suggesting
that's public knowledge. Everybody knows where he lives in
everyone
New York
knows
City. Everybody knows. It's
famous. It's not a secret. Brother, okay, so this is Jordan Sheridan emailed Cornel West about this, and he did email Jordan back. Brother Carville should be ashamed of himself. Not one word of self-criticism of his party, only scapegoating of those who reject his neoliberal friends. That was Cornel's answer.
Yep. He should tweet that out publicly. Should just send that in an email. I think he should say that in public. Tusker, thanks for the $5. 500,000 Iraqi children were murdered
he
as
must
a
have
result
given
of the Gulf War
Jordan. Sorry, he must have given Jordan permission to share it.
I would imagine. Yeah. I mean, maybe not. Maybe Jordan's chasing the headline there. You never know. His channel's been doing a lot better since he started covering the Cornel West campaign. See, maybe we talk some business sense into him at least. Maybe stop complaining that no one watches the stories that they're not watching and start covering some stuff that people want to watch. Now that you're getting more views, maybe you don't got to be so angry at people anymore.
That's it. Maybe there will be peace in the kingdom.
Yeah.
Maybe we can all get together and get the CIA after us as one big group.
Yeah, right, exactly. Quintessential, thanks for the $10. When did you start having doubts about Crystal Ball? I'll be honest with you. I don't watch that much of this stuff anymore. So I just was not following it. It was very late. I mean, to me, the red flag was for me when she started pumping Marianne. Like up until then, I didn't think much of Crystal Ball. I don't watch much of this stuff anymore. I mostly listen to the podcasts now. Like the shows that put out a podcast version, I'll listen in the car while I work or something. I don't watch much YouTube anymore.
Okay, so I've said this before, and I will say it again. Even now, if you want to keep up with the news in a way that substitutes for what cable news used to be in your life, if you used to keep up with news that way, if you want this story, that story, and you want it with the core assumption that our institutions are completely corrupt, Breaking Points is still the best in the business. Now, a lot of people say they like Sagar better. Frankly, that's where I'm at this point. I like his segments and his monologues better than hers, especially because she has so deeply compromised herself. And I'll co-sign what Keaton's saying. Yeah, it really started with the Marianne thing. Like with the Marianne thing, I just couldn't believe that she lit her credibility on fire like that. Because, for example, we made fun of the segment. Did we do it? Yeah, we did it when Nick and CJ were on, right? We showed the segment where she rolls her eyes talking about how AOC is not backing Marianne. Now, you know what? If you looked at that segment as a whole, that segment as a whole has a criticism of the squad, of the progressives in Washington, that I don't think anyone who watches our show would disagree with. And the whole thing just has a sour note because she blows the monologue with that gesture to this fucking joke of a candidate that she's obsessed with, and increasingly, I'm sure, is feeling humiliated by the reality of her campaign and the limits of their ability to pump it up. So look, I still think Breaking Points, if you're trying to find some place to find out what's going on, look, they more, Jordan made this point when we were talking to him. Yeah, they're more likely to cover Ukraine from a critical perspective than a lot of other people in that space, right? Who are not quite in our space, but they're not TYT either in that way. They are more likely. Look, they do put East Palestine stories on there, and as far as I can see, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of these other channels like TYT and Majority Report, they could give a fuck about East Palestine. I've never seen an East Palestine story out of them. Maybe when it initially happened, when it was a headline, when the
you've seen very little follow up, if any. Yeah,
but there's no follow up. So look, man, things. The world's complicated. You can't just be like everything's black, everything's white. Breaking Points, because they have more resources, I think, and because they are coming out of that kind of news opinion model, they cover a greater range of stories than other people do. Sometimes her take can be cringe, and she's really destroyed her credibility a lot with Marianne, which is unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. Overall, it's still the best show of its kind in the space, in my opinion. You just have to take some of Crystal with a grain of salt. Like, I definitely do not take her as seriously. She lost a lot of her credibility. And it was Marianne. I mean, I never had a bad word to say about her until then.
Zach Boyles, thanks to the 199. You made it, Keaton. Good work. Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about this video. Here, I'll play it one more time for everybody while we're doing the super chats. This is the video. Yeah, I edited this.
The Russian bombing of Grozny and what we witnessed there with
fucking asshole.
The war in Iraq. I don't think it's accurate to compare the pummeling of a city by Russian artillery with civilians inside, pummeling every single day with the intention of just destroying and flattening a city, with actions the U.S. took.
Yeah, see, yeah. Made that one this morning. It's funny because I tweeted it out at like 7 o'clock in the morning right after I made it, and it got no action at all. So I took it down because I was like, okay, this is obviously a dead tweet in the algorithm's eyes. Like, nobody liked it. Nobody, like, for 10 minutes, no reaction at all. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll try reposting it later in the day when more people are on. And yeah, it blew up pretty instantly. But thank you, Zach. Appreciate the compliment. Roy Astorietta, thanks for the 199. Good morning, Starshine. The Earth says hello, Spock. Where are you, Roy Astorietta? Where's Good Morning Starshine? Are you in the States or are you somewhere?
Good morning, Starshine. A lot of music on this show tonight.
A lot of music on this show, indeed. Nicole, thanks for the $10. Okay, calm down. It was about that Jason Aldork. Oh, that's what you were upset about, the Jason Aldean song. Okay, interesting. All right, well, I don't blame you.
All right. I honestly wasn't sure what our audience's take was going to be on it. It seems like everyone pretty much was with us on that.
Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty undeniable.
Well, because you told me you had that very Libby guy, and I actually saw that Krasenstein. It was like, this is censorship. So I wasn't sure.
No, the Krasensteins are so shameless, man. They are like the biggest shit libs on earth, and then Elon paid them some money for their tweets, and now they're like, now
they're all like Daily Wire.
Exactly. No faster way to a shit lib's heart than paying them. You really want to sweep a lib off their feet? Just dangle $1 in front of their face. They'll do fucking anything. Extra Bola. James Carville was rescued from a crashed UFO. Yeah, maybe. maybe.
Possible.
The new alien expose. And then I like this one, Extra Bola. This one was not a super chat, but I liked it. It looks like a cracked out turtle. Yeah, indeed. He looks like a swamp creature. He's from Louisiana. He's from the swamp country. He looks like he crawled out of a swamp. Really does. Looks like a little reptile.
I'm gonna tell you something that's gonna keep you up at night. And if anyone in our chat knows the name of the show, I'll be impressed. Okay. Oh God, the fucking horror. They tried to do a show with like Carville and other political Washington people playing themselves as kind of like a funny, ironical kind of show of, Washington and what life is like for these pundits and strategists. And they just played themselves. Like James Carville was in it. I think Mary Matlin was in it. This was an actual show. And I think it ran for like 3 episodes, and even the shit libs weren't biting, so they killed it.
Wow. Yeah, I don't remember that.
Oh, that happened. That happened.
It
was like James Carville acting.
Yeah.
But like
now
himself.
that you mentioned, though, I didn't think I remembered it, but it actually does ring a bell. It does ring a bell. I forget.
All right. Anybody in the chat can find the name.
That's a deep cut. I don't know how many people know that one. This is a Rumble rant from and Janice. Thank you. Stein used vote blue no matter who. Psychopaths to help fund recounts. Yes, I know that for sure. Our friend Russell and I met by basically double teaming, a lib friend of ours. We didn't know each other. We just would comment on this guy's Facebook posts and stuff. Rabid Hillary, anti-Bernie guy. And then after the election, he shared those recount links like every 20 minutes when she was funding off of those recounts. So yeah, no, she actually absolutely did raise a lot of money off them for those recounts. The only recount completed gave her evidence to file suit and win. Result: Pennsylvania only paper ballots, auto recounts. Oh, that's interesting. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was actually some like tangible gain that came out of those. I know after the Wisconsin recount, it looked like Trump actually had more votes than originally planned, than it originally showed. West needs a tough...
1848. Is that real? Was that really the name of it?
No, there was a show called K Street that George Clooney produced. That was like a drama on HBO or
that
something.
kind of an idea.
Yeah.
I see. No, yeah.
No, he's talking about a literal show where they played versions of themselves. Yeah. West needs a tough love refresher course. Today's Bible verse, John 2:15. That's from Bonzo Beans. Thank you for the Rumble rant. We appreciate the Rumble rants over there, guys. We will love you over on Rumble. 127 in the Rumble chat, 731 in the YouTube chat. Let's hit that like button, folks, and hit that subscribe button. Like this stream, get some more people in here. Cool Blue, thanks for the $9.99. In the 1993 Oscar-nominated documentary The War Room, yes, James Carville and George Bush Sr. is an old calendar, said George Bush Sr. is an old calendar, that he is yesterday. This is how he describes James Carville and everyone of his ilk. Yeah, it's unfortunate that the guy still has some degree of relevance, so many years later in those circles, in those orbits. But yes, I do remember that documentary that you're talking about. We'll read one more for now.
I think it was K Street. I'm looking at his IMDb now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so he was in it playing himself, yeah.
But that was the George Clooney show, right? Didn't George Clooney produce that show? There was like a drama.
Did he produce that?
There was a drama that he was involved with.
Yeah, no, the show was definitely K Street.
Oh, all right, interesting. Dan Richmond, thanks for the $4.99. Jill Stein ran in 2012, too. Yes, great point. It was only a problem in 2016 because the DNC was ramming an unelectable psychopath down our throats. That is true, yes, and that's a good point that never gets brought up. When she ran against Obama in a race that Obama figured to win from the outset anyway by a comfortable margin, they didn't mind. Good point, sir. And let's take one more here. Thanks, Jose Alvarado, for the $10. I am for any of these... For whoever any of these MFers are against. Yeah. Thank you, Jose. We appreciate that very much. We will get to everybody's
and a lot
chats.
of the country.
Yep. Oh, exactly. That makes a big difference. A lot of people will support people just based on who hates them, right? I mean, that's one of the things that Taibbi said about Trump. He says they like him because you hate him, right? That's his core appeal.
Well, not that just like Trump has certain gifts. Joe Rogan's show is good, but that's a big part of it. You made him much more popular than he would have been, in my opinion. If he didn't get that kind of backlash, I don't think he'd be as big as he is.
I think there's some truth to that as well. All right, folks. So let's go on to segment number 3. A couple weeks ago, as I'm sure you guys all remember, David Axelrod fired off a tweet that went kind of viral. We have referenced this tweet on the show before. He said, in 2016, the Green Party played an outsized role in tipping the election to Donald Trump. Now, with Cornel West as their likely nominee, they could easily do it again. Risky business. See, my reply did pretty well. I said, sounds like a plan. Yeah, not bad. Not my best tweet, but not my worst. But he got a notable quote tweet from an unlikely source here, Chris Cuomo. Yes, that Chris Cuomo. The Chris Cuomo, everybody knows, brother of Andrew Cuomo, son of Mario, former CNN anchor.
Hell hath no fury like an Italian scorned.
Like a Cuomo scorned. Yes, this plays like a message to Brother West, writes Chris Cuomo, when it should be a wake-up call to the party, no? There is an entitlement from party elites who think anyone who questions the club is the problem. Zero sum ain't working for the country. Time for more than the other side is worse? ? But that wasn't everything. Axelrod responds, if Trump were to win in 24, it would mean more than the defeat of a Democrat, Chris Cuomo. It would be a repudiation of the rule of law upon which our democracy stands. These third-party candidacies, Wests, certainly make that outcome more likely. That is my message. Cuomo responds, Axe.
I mean, that you should have let me do in the FOP voice.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly. Next time. Axe, you don't think the democracy can survive Trump? How would his re-election violate rule of law, assuming he did not cheat? The two-party system is failing the democracy, and nothing changes if nothing changes. That is my point, Axe. Chris Cuomo sounding pretty BASED, if you ask me, lately. I wonder what's gotten into him. Red-pilled Cuomo. But before we dig deeper into Chris Cuomo, we'll read some other tweets because he's been on a tear defending third parties and tearing down the two-party system here. I do want to just take a little bit of a game break here and bring up a little video of David Axelrod from 2015 because, Axelrod made a lot of waves with that initial tweet, and he obviously followed up with Chris Cuomo fretting about third parties and the threat that they pose not just to the Democrats, but to democracy, rule of law, right? What did I say in the previous segment? Whenever these people talk about democracy, rule of law, these are just code words for Democratic Party, right? You're a threat to democracy if you're a threat to the Democrats. You're a threat to the rule of law if you're a threat to the Democrats. You're a threat to the institutions, right? And the norms and the Constitution itself, if you threaten the Democrats.
Well, not only that, basically they have defined not being, and this is part of why these accusations have, I think, unfortunately lost their power. When you say basically everyone who's against the Democratic Party is some kind of an ist or a phobe, it's the boy who cried wolf. Like, you lose the power to actually call out the people who really are those things.
Now, worse than an ist or a phobe, like you're an agent of some sketchy foreign plots to subvert the country. Like you're a traitor almost, right? Like you're disloyal to America unless you're loyal to the Democrats.
You're a traitor. Yeah, everything outside that circle of the Democratic Party and a few, Lincoln Project adjacent people. Everybody else, these are the barbarians at the gate. They're the forces of chaos. It's not just they have to be defeated in an election. It's that they have to be crushed because they're traitors. They're traitors to the country. And that is incredibly dangerous. Even as they say, these people are a threat to democracy. That's the greatest threat to democracy in the country at this moment, that they are trying to frame politics in that way, and because it justifies everything. I mean, that premise underlies their whole censorship regime, right? Because of course it's justified if everyone who doesn't have the opinion of the establishment is undermining the country itself. It started before the virus of unknown origin, but that really kicked it into overdrive.
Well, I want to show this piece from 2015. This is a brief video clip of David Axelrod on CNN. This was, as the Obama years were winding down and it looked like Hillary Clinton was going to take the reins, and so Obama could ride off into the sunset with the Democrats, still in charge, right? This was 2015, where it was still very much looking likely that Hillary Clinton was going to be the next president. So all was right in the world, and Axelrod was sort of waxing nostalgic about his years on the Obama campaigns going back to 2004, because Axelrod obviously advised Obama's Senate campaign. And here's Axelrod talking about how it was he and Michelle who convinced Obama to run on the "Yes, we can" slogan. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because now, 20 years later almost, David Axelrod fretting about third-party interference. Why? Because the Democrats have nothing else to use to convince people to vote for them except the threat of a subversion of democracy coming from these shady actors who are, yes, some voting for Trump, but some voting for the Greens. Here he is talking about how Barack Obama wasn't sold on the "Yes, we can" thing.
The first ad that I had written for his Senate campaign in 2004, and it ended with him using those words, "Yes, we can." It was a story about all the improbable things that he had already been able to accomplish in his life. And when he got to the end of it, he said, "Yes, we can." Is that too corny? And I made a strong case for why I thought it was really important, because it was inclusive and positive, and
it was
really
important.
Played against the political environment.
He said, "Is this corny? Is this too corny? I don't know. This seems kind of stupid, kind of silly." Axelrod mentions this here on the air. That's been written in books and stuff like that. The "Yes, we can," the hope and change. Obama never bought any of that. He always thought it was dumb. Axelrod says, no, trust me, this is good. This is good. Trust me, the morons who we act like we have this reverence for, right? They'll eat this up. They'll vote for us. Trust me. Use it. Use it. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. It's great.
In the right way. But he turned to Michelle Obama, who was sitting on a staircase in this home where we were shooting, and he said, Mish, what do you think? And she just slowly shook her head and said, not corny. So he didn't really, all my arguments as a trained professional didn't mean all that much, but her opinion really did, and thank God, because that slogan became, an icon for that campaign and the campaigns to come.
But of course, you couldn't deliver on any of the vague promises that you made with slogans like "Yes, we can" and "Hope and Change." And so, what happens? The country became fed up. They became bitter, and they turned on you, and they voted for Donald Trump. And now you're stuck with President Joe Biden, who has nothing to run on in 2024. He's stuck with a vice president who's even less electable than he is. And so you have no choice but to run him and hope for the best. And all you can do now is complain on Twitter and on CNN that a third-party candidate is threatening to upend your Apple Card here. When you are one of the guys, like David Axelrod has done more than 99% of political operatives to create this dynamic of widespread cynicism, widespread distrust in institutions. It was he and the inner circle around Barack Obama that built the Obama image that so many people invested him in. It was a brilliant campaign tactic. He's one of the smartest political operatives there is. But when you don't back that up, what happens? The country turns. And now that the country turns, what? Is he out giving Joe Biden advice? No, he's bitching on TV and on social media that a third party is going to come along and take advantage of the missed opportunities of the Obama years and take advantage of people's cynicism that they have that was a natural outgrowth of the failed presidency and broken promises of Barack Obama. Part of the reason there was such hope in his presidency in the first place is because Axelrod put it there with these phrases like, yes, we can. And now here, 20 years later, look where you're at. Look at where you're at.
What I'm worried about is if we run on hope and change, and then I pick my entire cabinet based on what Citibank wants me to pick, aren't people going to feel kind of cheated? I'm afraid they might turn to a right-wing demagogue after that. X? Nah, don't worry about it. By then, we're knee-deep in cash and Netflix endorsements. What do we care? We're doing a podcast by then. What's a podcast? Exactly. You'll find out.
Trust me. Hear about this thing called an iPod? Well, you're going to be able to do radio shows on them. They call them podcasts, right? Not broadcasts, right? Get it?
And imagine how all these bankers are going to reward you after you don't prosecute any of them. Exactly. No, between him, I mean, it's funny because we got them both tonight. We got Carville and we got Axelrod. Yeah, I mean, those two have, been key. With a lot of help from a lot of people, but they've been key to the destruction of the Democratic Party to what it is today. Where
absolutely,
all they have left are people who are privileged enough to treat politics like Manchester United, right? It's not really of any consequence for those people. It's a sporting event. That's all it is for them, and that's why all of this coverage is just horse race. It's horse race. It's virtue signaling. It's fear mongering. Look at what AOC fell right back on when she was trying to discredit Jose and the people who keep heckling her with Jose. They're coming from outside our community.
Right.
We don't know who these people are. It's because look, I'm sorry.
LaRouche. They're LaRouchers. They're weird.
The people who are attracted to the Democratic Party are fucking pussies, man. They are these very safety cult, very fearful, very neurotic kind of people. Like language like that really speaks to them. That's why you were able to convince so many of them that if you didn't want to stick a fucking mask on your child for a couple of years, even though all of the science showed they weren't really in any danger, it really didn't matter. As long as you ginned up that fear with them. I feel bad for this guy's children. He doesn't want to put any masks on them. I mean, it was so easy to just lead them into that mindset. And, you look at so much of the language they use to discredit people, to discredit movements. And it's so often with Democrats, it's this appeal to safety. It's not safe. It's not healthy. It's not clean, right? Because they're people the people attracted to that party tend to be those kinds of people. They're very neurotic, very fearful kind of people. It's very easy to make them feel threatened with that kind of language.
Well, Chris Cuomo was not done. He interacted with Axelrod a couple of different times, but then obviously you have a lot of Axelrod's followers, and there's probably a decent amount of overlap with Cuomo's followers as well. So Robert McAnthony replies, "It's not that winning would violate law. It would represent a substantial loss of faith in institutions, the rule of law, and the democratic process. It would be a serious blow to the country because of what it says about the electorate, And Chris Cuomo replies back, "I get your concern, but the electorate is the country." It's not exactly true, but I understand what he's saying. "And if an election is fair, whatever happens is the democracy at work, right?" Well, that's the thing that the libs could never understand, is that Donald Trump was not an anti-democratic outcome. Donald Trump was a very predictable democratic outcome. So he touches upon that. Michael Saferstein, "Chris, you're fine with a third-party candidate being the cause of Trump's being reelected?" What does he say here? "I think the two-party system is poison. There always seems to be an existential threat that justifies keeping things as they are as more and more of us move away from parties. You are okay with that. Why?" I mean, he just keeps going. "Speaking for myself, I identify as independent because both parties have failed me. Two parties work if there are two serious parties. Since when? Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Teddy," I like how he calls him Teddy, "all said that the two-party system was poison to the nation. Candidates have become more extreme to accommodate the which is worse battle to the bottom." I think he's right in one sense. I've talked about this. I talked about the parties have become more extreme in their partisanship, but they've actually become more united in their sort of ideology, right? But they're more extreme partisans. But ideologically, I think the problem is that the parties are actually far too similar, not too different. Daniel Sheeler, "I agree, Chris. We need a real third party in this country. The Republican-Democrat duopoly needs to be crushed." Quote tweets that, "We need the parties to stop controlling the primary process. That, ranked choice voting, more debates will allow more solution-oriented men and women in the mix. Most people apply critical thinking over simply which is worse." So there you go. Looking pretty good. Chris Cuomo recently. So Russell put together a little montage of where he was, who this guy is, and maybe that explains a little bit of this evolution.
I think it's like the Buddha. He left the palace and he found out what's really going on out there.
Well, I think a lot of it is, look, a lot of these media people are such ego monsters that,
there's that
when
too.
the system turns on them, they see the light. They're like, oh, wow, these people are a bunch of ghouls. As long as the ghouls are treating them as one of them, they don't see it, right? They're not capable of seeing it. But here's a little montage of Chris Cuomo's time inside the system.
Yes, bitches from the right call me Fredo.
This is the infamous Fredo clip.
Yeah.
No, punk ass bitches from the right call me Fredo. My name is Chris Cuomo. I'm an anchor on CNN. Fredo is from The Godfather. He was that weak brother. Isn't that your brother? And they use it as an Italian aspersion. Ain't you Italian? Are you Italian? It's a fucking insult to your people. It's an insult to your fucking people. It's like the N-word for us.
Is it true that this was the swab that the nurse was actually using on you, and that at first it went into your nose and disappeared, so that in scale, this was the actual swab that was being used to
Cuomo
fit up
brothers
that
act drove me
double-barrel
up a
shotgun that
fucking
you have
wall,
mounted on
especially
the
being in
front
New York
of your
State.
pretty face. I never misled anyone about the information I was delivering or not delivering on this program. I never attacked nor encouraged anyone to attack any woman who came forward.
I talked to Chris pretty regularly. He was on some calls that we did, and he advised us on how to respond.
In fact, top Cuomo aide Melissa DeRosa and Chris Cuomo had many email exchanges. At one point, DeRosa asked Cuomo, rumor going around from Politico, 1 to 2 more people coming out tomorrow. Can you check your sources? Cuomo answers, on it.
You're gonna have a fucking problem. What? What are you gonna do about it? I'll fucking ruin your shit. I'll fucking throw you down these stairs like a fucking punk.
Please do.
Why? So you can fucking sue?
You don't want
So you
to
can fucking sue?
Well, why don't you do it?
Go take a swing. Then. You wanna call me Fredo? Take a fucking swing.
I'm not gonna swing.
Take a fucking swing. Watch your fucking hands. Take a swing. Watch your fucking hands. Take a swing. No, come on, boy. Come on.
I'll ruin your shit.
I'll throw you down the fucking stairs.
Fucking stairs. Hey, David Axelrod, I'll fucking ruin
Why?
your
So you
shit.
can fucking sue? And actually watching that,
Gonna try and
the
ratio
guy,
me, motherfucker?
The guy did want him to take a swing so he could sue him. That's my read of that.
You were
He was trying to egg him on.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, I want to get some of that Cuomo money.
That was uptight, stick up his ass Cuomo. You know, he was angry. He was under a lot of stress, you know, working at CNN, trying to hold down that #1 slot, obviously doing the prop comedy with his brother, you know, carrying some water for his party bosses and things like that. Indeed.
So many of the people I know are shit libs, theater people. Yo, that fucking Cuomo shit was driving me crazy, especially being in New York State. Like, I would see these people going, that's my governor. Did you see Cuomo today? Hey, guys, are you watching Cuomo's press conference tomorrow? It was driving me out of my fucking mind.
Well, then he went on the show, obviously, with his brother. They had those whole things. And then as certain accusations started coming, they had to obviously keep their distance. They couldn't do that anymore. But, you know, it was a stressful life for Chris Cuomo. But once he was exiled from CNN, you know, now he's propping up third parties. I think a real turning point was his appearance on the Adam Friedland show, which is fucking amazing. We're going to play a little clip of this. Adam Friedland, by the way, one of the co-hosts of the Cumtown podcast with Stavros Halkias and Nick Mullen. And when Stavros quit the show, Nick and Adam kind of created this Adam Friedland sort of Dick Cavett-like sort of YouTube talk show. And it's amazing because it's not a parody of a talk show. It's a real talk show, but it's also very tongue-in-cheek. It's very Andy Kaufman-esque. Right. And this interview between Chris Cuomo and Adam Friedland is one of the best things I've ever seen on the internet. If there is an internet hall of fame, this is absolutely going in. Because Chris Cuomo, as we just showed you, kind of a loathsome guy, kind of an obnoxious, uptight asshole with no original ideas, just a water carrier for the CNN bosses and the Democratic Party bosses. But he appears on this show, and his brother, obviously. He appears on this show, and he is completely charming. He's funny. He has terrific timing. He actually makes you like him. When you watch this show, you can't help but like Chris Cuomo. And the politics, I mean, their podcast was not a political podcast, but they're left-wing. Like, they're not Cuomo-type people. And so here's a clip from the Adam Friedland show, which is just hilarious. This whole interview is fantastic. You should absolutely watch it. It's only 55 minutes, but this is amazing stuff. This is Chris Cuomo free from the pressure of holding down that CNN top slot.
Dua Lipa. I like Dua Lipa.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. My daughter is a
I
singer.
would let her.
And she would sing Dua Lipa. And I love what she does.
I don't know her
some
songs.
people will say, oh no, too sexy, objectifies. But I'm telling you, I watched my daughter and her kind of resonating with the vibe, you know, and the empowerment principle of it.
I don't know the songs.
I loved it.
I would let her shit in my mouth for sure.
Where does that come from?
His reaction is so good. He has such timing. He's really good. part of what makes this work is the juxtaposed physicality of the two guys. Adam is this really skinny, kind of nebbishy looking Jew guy. And then Chris Cuomo, this like butch Italian, is just, sitting there. He's too big for his chair, right? Like, just that works for the comedy. But what a reaction.
With the vibe, and the empowerment principle of it.
I don't know the songs,
I loved it.
I would let her shit in my mouth if she were.
Where does that come from? Seriously. Where does it come from?
I don't know. It just came out. I don't know.
Where? Like, did you see that somewhere? Or?
It wouldn't even be pleasant if she did that.
It absolutely would not be pleasant.
I'm just saying, I would do the worst thing ever to be with her. Oh.
I mean, the Come Town Show is such a vulgar show. I mean, it's a great comedy. I love that podcast a lot. But he goes in there and, a lot of the show was him, taking jabs at him, ribbing on him, fucking with him a little bit. And could you imagine the Chris Cuomo of old in the montage that we just showed, not like getting up and walking out? Like, he's a changed man. He sits there, he rolls with it. I mean, he came off so well. That's the genius of that program. Is that it made this guy who everybody watching that show, because of like the political bent of the podcasters, are already predisposed to like hating this guy. Right. And they bring him in, and within an hour, you can't help but fucking love the guy. Knowing everything you know about him, right? You still can't help but come out of that interview liking the guy. That's brilliant art. That episode was absolutely fantastic.
Well, it is definitely interesting. I'll have to go back and watch that. I've only seen that clip. It's definitely interesting when you get somebody like this to the manor born from a political dynasty, somebody with real inside knowledge of how the sausage is made, just decides to go kamikaze on the system that made him.
I think that's giving him a little too much credit. I don't know if he's going kamikaze, but he's definitely loosened up a bit.
He's loosened up, but hey, man, I don't think he's fundamentally stupid. He knows you want to put a bug up these people's asses. Talking third party at this moment with probably the biggest third party threat to the system since Ross Perot in the running, and more of a threat really than Ross Perot. They weren't really scared of Ross Perot. He was a businessman. He just didn't like NAFTA. Like it wasn't the existential threat that Cornel West is to the duopoly, where if he cracks 5%, you could have this Green Party holding at least the Democratic Party hostage in every election thereafter. Ross Perot was just like, if he had won, it wouldn't have been the end of the world.
Right.
He wasn't going to go really. He was just going to.
That would be like if like Mark Cuban ran third party and won.
That very good comparison. Yes, exactly. He would have been he was skeptical of trade deals. That would have been the only difference than if George Bush had won.
Right. Right.
So at this exact moment, for him to be talking, I mean, it's not like one tweet or two tweets. He's going.
No, he's been going on all week about it.
Yeah, man. And because he's Chris Cuomo, look, he has an audience that Cornel West doesn't. Like a lot of those CNN zombies trust Chris Cuomo even after all of this. Like those tweets are going to reach people that Cornel West would not on his own.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, that does take that message to that audience. So, yeah, no, there's definitely an element where, like, you can kind of sense that the guy feels in that spot where he has really nothing to lose, you know, and that's a spot where, once these guys find themselves in and, they are these ego monsters, right? Like, they can just kind of turn. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Here, I want to play one more clip because this clip will actually showcase more of Cuomo's comic talent, I think. What is it, 42 minutes and something? Here, I'll see if I can find it. Where the hell is it in here?
Maybe they can bring back K Street and put him in it.
Yeah. This is, what was it, 42, something like that? I think it's somewhere. It is. With the wallet. The wallet was a great bit. Was that what it was? Let me see.
I think silence is underrated on TV. Let's try it.
Please give it back.
Oh, yeah, here it is. All right.
For real.
RB1.
You dropped your ball.
I mean, what is it with this chair, man? It like pickpockets you.
Sorry about the chair. I'll get another one.
30 years I've had this wallet.
Really? Let me see.
Yeah, I carry this around with me in it. Here, I'll give you both.
What is this? I love the cops. The time
I do love the cops. You don't love the police? Who keeps you safe?
Who is this guy?
He was a writer.
He's good?
No, he sucks. That's why I carry around one of his quotes in my wallet. Please give it back.
Jokes.
Your dad get you out of a lot of traffic tickets and stuff when you were a kid?
No.
Yeah, he kept going on about his dad, you know, being Mario Cuomo, asking if the mob tried to whack him and stuff like that. So yeah, that was. I mean, it's an interesting arc, and it's surprising. It's very surprising that a guy like that would be talking. I mean, especially, I mean, the Cuomos are Democratic royalty of a sort. I mean, they're not national names, but you know, statewide, yeah, New York State, man, yeah, that's a powerful name, indeed.
I mean, Mario Cuomo was expected to run the year that Clinton did. It was a surprise to a lot of people that he didn't run.
Yes,
and nobody's ever really been able to explain it to a satisfactory extent. They usually say, well, he was afraid the problems in his own state would be used against him. You ever been to Arkansas?
Oh yeah, right.
I mean, so that's not much of an argument.
Yeah, no, it's weird because he was not only expected to run, but people thought he had a good chance to win. People were talking about this guy could be the next president. Yeah, right. So a big deal. It's a big deal when a guy like that just kind of turns and starts talking the third party stuff. You know, it's a sign of where things are going. Like I said, all of this points to just how much legitimacy the party is losing, right? When even guys like this start talking third party. DC, thanks for the $5. Google cash flow to Clinton Foundation amid Russian uranium deal. Exactly. There's a New York Times article and everything. Oh, yeah. No, we know that one. That's one of the classics back in the day.
Well, yeah. And that was based on I'm assuming that's why you brought it up. That's based on the reporting in Clinton Cash. That article.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, yes, that was based on Schweitzer's reporting. And that's part of why the Clinton campaign thought it necessary to tie Trump to Russia, because they knew that article was out there. Like you said, April 23rd, 2015. That's right around the time she announced her campaign. She announced in April 2015. So they knew this was a vulnerability from the jump. And that's why they tried to project that vulnerability onto the opposing campaign. Tusker, thanks for the $5. Didn't Carville marry Bush's campaign manager right after the 92 campaign? I didn't know Madeline was Bush's campaign manager, but yes, he is married to a Republican.
Was she the campaign manager?
I don't know. I don't know what role she served.
She was a Republican operative.
Oh, yeah. No, his wife is, diehard, old school GOPer, and he's a Democrat. That's the thing. They're very, very public about that. But the Republicans and Democrats are supposedly enemies. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Back when I was blue-pilled, I thought the same thing. Like, how can these people get along? Well, as you get older, you kind of realize it's all a game to them.
What real differences do they have?
Right. Probably makes for some, fun times in the bedroom if you're into that kind of thing, right?
A little role play.
Yeah, a little role play.
Well,
Quintessential.
They put on the old straw motor.
Exactly. They've been married a long time. Maybe that's how they keep things fresh and interesting.
They keep it exciting.
Exactly. How would you describe Jon Stewart? Interesting question, Quintessential. You asked us about Crystal Ball. I think Jon Stewart is a brilliant guy. I think he has his brilliant moments, and I think he has his bad moments. Like, there are times even, like when he came out and defended Joe Rogan against calls to throw him off of Spotify. I thought that was really impressive. I wrote a whole article about that. Then
then when he's giving a medal to a Ukrainian Nazi,
right?
When he's going on his show and pretending that there are no issues with gender transition for minors and making it in true Daily Show fashion, setting up a guest who clearly is not up to be going back and forth with him to discredit the argument. Not so much. And it's also very clear, I think, with his post Daily Show work now. He's so out of touch with the current moment, and he's so desperate to maintain relevance. And I think that episode was actually an example of that. He feels like he has to kowtow to the cultural trends of the moment without really understanding those cultural trends. I think he feels like he has to go along with them to be the good guy. Like he can't challenge them because that's going to make him Bill Maher or something.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a fair take, but then obviously the lab leak bit on Colbert was great,
right.
So he's a mixed bag.
Well, that's why I attribute it to that. Like, right. I don't feel like he's being intentionally deceptive, nor do I feel like he doesn't care. Like John Oliver, it's probably some of both. How often his segments are completely deceptive. It's probably some ignorance and some just not really giving a fuck. With Jon Stewart, I think he's desperately trying to figure out who he should be in this moment. And he's trying not to be the old man telling the kids to get off his lawn. And it's making him very non-critical and hesitant to be skeptical about a lot of current social trends that I think you'd expect him to know better than to get on board with.
All right, Zach Boyles, thanks for the 199. Russ, this ain't Grandpa's CNN. They got cowbell. I wonder if we're getting another cowbell rally out of a new Trump indictment, but that's not going to be in New York, right? That's going to be in Atlanta.
I could have used a little more cowbell.
Yeah, that's true. I think he's going to have to go to Atlanta, right? Because, no, that's the election shit. No, that's the election shit. So the January 6th charges, I don't know where they were charging.
Well, wouldn't that be in D.C.?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I thought he was in trouble in Atlanta, something with the election thing, but we'll have to go on a cowbell tour of Trump indictment rallies. Make a documentary about all of them there. Tusker, thanks for the $5. Breaking points of State Department populism when it comes to foreign policy. Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're kind of blue-pilled on that as it goes. But I understand what Russell's saying. Like, for their niche, for their corner of the space, it's as good as you'll get.
Like, if you listen,
but it's still,
bring your own skepticism. Right. But I'm saying, the way I approach breaking points is the way that Noam Chomsky says you should approach the New York Times. He says, yes, there's a lot of facts and information in the New York Times, but you have to read it with a critical lens. That's how I approach breaking points. They have the best overall coverage, but I have a certain detachment.
Right. That's a good way of putting it. Like Chomsky, even though he wrote Manufacturing Consent, he doesn't tell you boycott the media. He just tells you read it with a critical eye.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. Andre Johnstone, thank you very much for the $2. Please donate to Jose for Palestine. Jews for Palestine. Jose. No, I thought it said Jose, something like maybe because of the 4. I read that as Jose. Does a 4 look like an upside down E? I don't know. Please donate to Jews for Palestine Super PAC West 2024. Thank you, Andre Johnstone. All right, we got a couple more. We'll read after this final segment of the night, folks. Another epic stream. Thank you guys for being here. Another one that ran a little long, as I figured it might, because lots to talk about with you all. Thank you all for being here. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. It's all very, very helpful. Yesterday, was this yesterday or 2 days ago? I forget. Earlier this week. Here, we'll start again. Reset. See, that's what you do when you don't know the exact day that something happened and you want to clip it for YouTube. Just say earlier this week, right? Because it can't go wrong. It happened earlier. It didn't happen in the future, right? It happened before we're broadcasting, and it definitely happened sometime
at
this
a
week.
Different point on the time continuum,
right?
Depending on your theories of quantum physics.
In the recent past, yes. Earlier this week,
or possibly the future, depending on your perspective.
Earlier this week, Donald Trump issued what struck me, as a surprising statement. This is a hell of a statement. I have this full screen so I can read it because there's a lot here. Wow, he starts. On Sunday night, while I was with my family, having just arrived from the Turning Points event in Florida, where I won the straw poll against all other Republican candidates with 85.7%, with all polls showing me leading in the Republican primary by very substantial numbers, almost everyone predicting that I will be the Republican nominee for president, and as I am leading Democrat Joe Biden in the polls by a lot, horrifying news for our country was given to me by my attorneys. Deranged Jack Smith, the prosecutor with Joe Biden's DOJ.
I thought you were going to say deranged jackal.
No.
That would be very funny.
That would have been funny. Deranged jackal Jack Smith, the prosecutor with Joe Biden's DOJ, sent a letter. Again, it was Sunday night. I was deep in prayer while this came across my phone, stating that I am a target of the January 6th grand jury investigation and that giving me a very short 4 days to report to the grand jury, which almost always means an arrest and indictment. So now, Joe Biden's Attorney General, Merrick Garland, who I turned down for the United States Supreme Court, in retrospect, based on his corrupt and unethical actions, a very wise decision, together with Joe Biden's Department of Injustice, have effectively issued a third indictment and arrest of Joe Biden's #1 political opponent, who is largely dominating him in the race for the presidency. Nothing like this has ever happened in our country before or even close. They illegally spied on my campaign, attacked me with a totally fake dossier that was funded by Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC, impeached me twice, parentheses, I won. They failed on the Mueller witch hunt, parentheses, no collusion. They failed on the Russia hoax, the 51 intelligence agents fraud, the FBI Twitter files, the DOJ Facebook censorship, and every other scam imaginable. But on top of all of that,
he's right.
No, I mean, when you read down a list on that, this is what I mean. He's building an actual case here. But on top of all of that, they have now effectively indicted me 3 times. The DOJ staffed and runs the DA's office in Manhattan, with a probable 4th coming from Atlanta, where the DOJ are in strict and possibly illegal coordination with the district attorney, whose record on murder and other violent crime is abysmal. This witch hunt is all about election interference and a complete and total political weaponization of law enforcement. It is a very sad and dark period for our nation. I'm sorry I had to read that whole thing, folks, but we have to give the president his due. It's an official statement from the former president. So, yeah, quite upset. Looks like a 3rd indictment coming down the pike. Looks like perhaps there is a 4th indictment coming down the pike. That was the Atlanta one that I confused for this one when I was talking earlier. He went on Sean Hannity's show for a town hall in Iowa last night to talk about this new development as well as some other issues. But here's Sean Hannity asking him about the news that he broke in the statement that we just read.
So they're still just doing it the normal way, right? They're doing the Iowa caucus, New Hampshire, all that.
Iowa's up first for them, yep.
Okay.
Indeed. Well, because their app didn't break the night that they were supposed to count the votes.
The app that was funded by the supporters of a candidate.
Right. The app. Right. The party of democracy that cares so much about the democratic process, who couldn't count their own votes on the night of the Iowa caucuses because the app happened to break. That disqualified Iowa.
Well,
there was
funny business with the Hillary Bernie thing too.
Oh yeah, with the coin tosses all going her way, all that shit. Yeah. Well, it's important. It's important to rig the primary because democracy is on the line.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to destroy democracy to save it.
Exactly.
Just a basic fundamental question. You have all of these never-ending attacks. Yeah. And you released on Truth Social earlier today that you are a target of this January 6th grand jury. My first question to you is, it doesn't seem to bother you like I think it would bother so many other people. What is it about you that it doesn't?
No, it bothers me. It bothers me for everybody in this incredible sold-out audience, and it bothers you. I got the letter on Sunday night. Think of it. I don't think they've ever sent a letter on Sunday night. And they're in a rush because they want to interfere. It's interference with the election. It's election interference. Never been done like this in the history of our country, and it's a disgrace. What's happening to our country, whether it's the borders or the elections or kinds of things like this, where the DOJ has become a weapon for the Democrats, an absolute weapon. And it seems that every time my polls, we're leading by a lot. And we're leading by a lot in a place called Iowa, a lot. Not only with the Republicans, but we're leading against Biden by a tremendous amount. They haven't seen anything like it. And they feel, I guess, they want to try and demean and diminish and frighten people, but they don't frighten us because we're going to make America great again. That's all there is. We're going to make our country, Sean, is a mess. You know it better than anybody. I mean, frankly, your reporting is
incredible. Says
it's incredible. They've never seen anything like it. When I was cutting together that the shit post the other day, so I had to look at that Dairy Queen clip a lot. And when you look at the things he says, it's really like he's just pushing buttons. Like he's not very smart. He's saying to the girl at the cash register as he's getting the whippies or whatever the fuck you call them, the Frosties. But anyone have a Dairy Queen where they live? What was Trump handing out there?
Those were blizzards.
Blizzards. That's it. And he says to the girl at the cash register, "Is everything going all right? You haven't had things going with the media."
Going with the media.
Well, I don't know. They're always covering it when I carry out the garbage at the end of the night, and there's a camera crew out there. What the fuck
are you getting good press? You getting good press here?
As it go with the media, like she's just gonna go, "God damn it! I hate the way they're covering Dairy Queen." Like, what the fuck did you think? Yeah, she's thinking about the media. So it's just dumb. Like he's absorbed that this is something that gets a lot of the people who vote for him stirred up. So he just says it. Just say, not that he doesn't have his own feelings about the coverage he gets.
No,
but,
of course.
But there's no reason for him to say something like, it's like he's just looking for a button to push. Has the media. That's
I watched that clip though. And I got to tell you, this is what I think makes him the formidable candidate that he is, because I think he's betting and his team are betting. And by team, I mean, not just people in his actual inner circle, but like the people who are still championing him, like Roger Stone, Steve Bannon made a statement that's pretty much exactly what I'm going to say here, which is like they see this election as a battle between not just the deep state and Trump, but between a government that has been weaponized against ordinary people and the ordinary people who are tasked with fighting back. Like the weaponization of government against a certain faction of its own people, in this case, about half, that is the argument that they are going to make. And I think it's powerful. And I think the Ukraine argument is powerful too, but it appeals to fewer people, unfortunately. I wish that weren't the case. I wish that were the number one issue on everyone's mind. I think Trump has a lot of potency there because he's the only one in either party speaking any sense on that issue. So I think that's big. But this sense that people have, this is why that meme got started. And this meme has been around forever, but it's the old one, they're not coming for me, Donald Trump. They're coming for you. I'm just in their way. People really feel that now. I think people feel that now. Hiring 87,000 IRS agents, by the way, did not help, right? I mean, that's big. People feel that. A lot of the way the pandemic was handled made people feel that.
And what are they going to do? Go after the rich? They're hiring 87,000 rich people? Really?
Right.
That's what they're going to be doing?
No, of course. But so there's that. A lot of the pandemic stuff, people felt like they were, if not targeted intentionally, and some people certainly feel that they were, for economic ruin, right? It made it very hard for people to get their financial lives in order after that shock to the system. There's a sense that No one really gave a fuck about what happened to them after the unemployment was cut off, right? The PPP loan thing was just handled in this completely roughshot way. I mean, I feel screwed over. I didn't take out a PPP loan because I was under the impression, idiot that I am, that if I took out a loan, I'd have to pay it back. And I'd have to pay it back on their terms. And that they would control my life. Turns out they forgave a lot of that, so like the indifference that the government feels towards people at best, as well as the real sense that people have that the government is working against them, that the government hates them and is actually trying to make their lives worse. A lot of the climate stuff, right? Talk about a lot of the regulations that they put on people while John Kerry flies around in a private jet that he pretends he doesn't own but does. We're going to cover that on Friday, by the way. We didn't have time this evening. Like, there is a real sense amongst the people that it's us, the people, versus the government, that they are actively working against the population. That's the sense that people have. And Trump speaks to that in a way that no one else does. No one else does. And that transcends the woke stuff. Like a lot of the DeSantis stuff, he gets into specifics about, sexually explicit images in schools and this and that. But on a macro level, just like broadly, thematically speaking, Trump is the pure heroin version of that. And that's why I think his numbers are so strong, because it's thematically resonant with people.
Okay, yes, but we do have a new poll out of Quinnipiac, and it may be an outlier. Hey, man, I mean, you got to see a pattern. I agree with everything that you just said, but I do feel that in the end, as things start to get serious, as it comes closer to actually voting, all of these prosecutions, all of the legal trouble he has, in the end, I do not think the majority of Republican voters are going to pick a guy who, best case scenario, can only serve one term, who's being prosecuted on, left, right, and center. I don't think in the end that's what they're going to go for. I could be wrong.
I mean, you're betting on basically what you're saying there, and you might be right. What you're saying there is that the Republican voter base is going to blink first. They're going to get the sense that, all right, they're just not going to let Trump win, and so we just have to settle for second best. Yeah. With the thinking that, like, hey, at this point, they don't even have to bat 1,000 on the prosecution. They have to bat 250. One out of these four cases lands him in hot water. Right. I mean,
and I also think, look, you got a narrative right now. Oh, Ron DeSantis had to cut some stuff. Come on, man. Has anybody ever been through a fucking election cycle? The media has to build narratives to sell their fucking product, so they jump all over these stories and they build them up. The election really doesn't start until after Labor Day. That's when things start to get serious. That's when people are paying attention. And you got to see what happens over the next few months. What DeSantis is able to do on a debate stage, and particularly if Trump actually shows up, that may be make or break right there in a lot of respects. I think this legal prosecution and the Republican voters starting to blink is reflected in this poll, which again could be an outlier. We have to see what subsequent polls show. But in this one, well, go ahead.
No, it's okay. So the total primary polling has Trump 54, DeSantis 25. Among registered Republicans, 59, 23, and then they do all these breakdowns here. It'd be interesting to sort of do a little bit of a deeper dive into some of these numbers, but some of the interesting things that jump out to me here is look at that split between whites with a 4-year college degree. Amongst those with a 4-year college degree, Trump and DeSantis almost even, almost within the margin of error, 34-29. No college degree, Trump 60-24. That's interesting. Interesting breakdown. I'm sorry for the RFK people and the Marianne Williamson people, but Biden, look at that, 71 to Kennedy's 14, Williamson 7. Okay, so don't hit me. I know I tweeted out a poll the other day that had Biden at 80, Kennedy at 11, and everybody's like, "What poll was that?"
Also, before were those overall numbers or New Hampshire numbers on Trump DeSantis?
I believe those were overall, weren't they?
Because in New Hampshire, this is part of what I was talking about.
Well, yeah, New Hampshire, it's tighter.
Trump lost 5 points since the last time they did the poll, and I'm saying that's the prosecutions. Because why else would he lose points? Like, there's no, like, if you liked him a month ago, nothing really happened other than these prosecutions. He didn't change a position or announce a new position that you wouldn't have expected. There's no other reason for that drop.
Could be for sure. Biden up 5 over Trump in the general polling, 49-44. Interesting, because Trump winning independents by 4 points, but obviously Biden with a huge advantage with women there. I mean, and that's probably has a lot to do with the Roe v. Wade thing, right? That's still an issue that Republicans are going to have to come up with some answer on. I mean, 60-34 is a massive margin for the Democrats, for women overall.
Yep.
For white women with a college degree, wow, that's fascinating. It's a great. I mean, to see, if you're a politics junkie and you break down the numbers, it's interesting. White women with a 4-year college degree, Biden by 27. White women without a 4-year college degree, Trump by 21. Talk about a massive swing there. A 40-point differential, more 45-point difference. College degree, no college degree. If you go down here, these are favorability ratings. Nikki Haley, favorable, unfavorable, this and that. Yeah, so you have a lot of numbers here to deal with. Is this whole thing New Hampshire, or is this was it a national thing?
No, it's national, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was national.
Yeah, it's national.
The New Hampshire poll,
but I know there were New Hampshire numbers in it.
Oh, okay.
Specifically.
Well, I know the New Hampshire polling has been tighter than the nationwide polling, which makes sense because, especially as an underdog candidate, you're going to invest a lot in the early states. So you're going to have more of an operation there, more advertising, more stuff there. And there it's about a 15-point race in Trump's favor, which is much closer, obviously, to where you want to be if you're Ron DeSantis than a 35-40-point loss nationally. The question is, ultimately, like those polls where you have Biden 49, Trump 44, if you start seeing more polls where Biden is opening up a lead against Trump in the general, that's going to be the opening for Meatball Ron. That's what he needs. He needs that. Because if it looks like Trump can win, the base's hearts are with Trump. They're not going to settle for Ron DeSantis if they don't think they have to.
I would more or less agree with that.
Yeah.
My theory of the case has always been predicated on they're going to have good reason to believe that they can't have Trump.
Right.
And I think that's mostly going to be legal reasons.
Yeah, no. I mean, I see where you're coming from with that. I mean, 4 indictments now. Now, once again, it's a matter of can they break them with those? Because that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to break them because with every indictment, the base just loves Trump more because it makes his case for him. It makes his case for him that they're coming after me because they hate what I stand for, and what I stand for is you, right? So, like, they're making his argument for him. So, like, they really are tempting people to just double down and triple down. But, of course, you know, like any game, it becomes a matter of when does one side fold, right? And that's the question. That's the question. A lot of this has to do with the outcomes of these trials. And, like, is he going to get a speedy trial? Like, are these cases going to be decided by the time people vote in a primary? I mean, it's getting late now, kind of, in terms of a legal calendar. You know, it's July. They hand down an indictment in early August for the Atlanta thing. Does he get a trial by January of next year? That's a pretty quick turnaround. You know?
No, probably not. But
right, so that means you're forcing people into voting booths not knowing what the outcome of this criminal trial is going to be.
That's what I'm saying.
That creates a lot of uncertainty.
At that point, look, all of these things, this is why I keep saying it's early. Yeah, DeSantis has had missteps. You know, so did Bill Clinton. So have a lot of people that went on to win. It doesn't really matter this early. unless it's, something absolutely catastrophic. When after Labor Day, and particularly in debates, DeSantis, and he's already doing it. We know what his pitch is. He's going to make the case that what Trump talks about, I've actually done. I'm actually going to do this. So you got to remember, it's not like their option is a Mitt Romney. There's no way that anyone with those kinds of politics, like, say, Nikki Haley, could challenge Trump. I don't, even with 10 indictments.
Right.
The Republican Party base is left that way behind. No candidate like that will ever win a Republican primary again. DeSantis is not that. So it really comes down to, how does he perform in those big events where people are paying attention? And for a lot of them, they're going to be looking at him for the first time. How does he do? Now, I think you got Trump facing 4 indictments, with people saying, well, he's probably not going to be able to serve, or if he does, he's going to be impeached and he's not going to finish his term. And, if DeSantis can make them feel like they're not giving anything up, then that's it. He has to make them feel like they're pissing off the establishment and they're going to prosecute their policy aims.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, we will see how it unfolds. But now, if you're talking about indictment 3 and 4, that thickens the plot, obviously. All right, let's read a couple more super chats, and then we will sign off for the night. Thank you guys very much for being here. Thanks for a lively chat, as always. Cool Blue, thanks for the $9.99. Isn't it telling that the home states of Bill Clinton, Al Gore, and James Carville, all carried by Clinton, realigned to the Republicans with George W. Bush in 2000? That's true. Well, that was one of the things that made Bill Clinton such a powerful candidate in their eyes, because it allowed them to compete in the South for the first time. At that point would be 28 years, 30 years, something like that, and they did compete in the South, as you said there. Of course, it didn't last very long. They all flipped back, but that was why Bill Clinton was seen as such a powerful candidate. That's why people in the Democratic Party loved him so much. It was sick. It was perverse. But they saw him as a candidate who could win in a country that they had largely lost. I mean, you had 2 terms of Reagan. Those were landslide elections. And then a term of George H.W. Bush. That's the last time in history that a 2-term president actually passed the ball to a president of the same party. It's very, very rare that happens, that you have 3 consecutive presidential terms under one party's control. That's how that speaks to the kind of desperate shape that the Democratic Party was in at the time, which was one of the core appeals of him.
Well, yeah,
was that he opened up the map for them in a way that certainly Mondale didn't, right? Dukakis didn't.
Well, that's how the New Democrat thing got sold, right? Well, hey, they had from Reagan on, they had so successfully stigmatized liberalism, as they call it, the liberals, right? They had so successfully made liberal a dirty word that like at that time, somebody in the Kennedy mold, in the traditional Kennedy mold, as Ted tried in 1980, it was a non-starter. It was a non-starter. The Democrats, after getting the living shit beaten out of them by Reagan and then his successor for 12 years, they would have fucking nominated a werewolf if they thought they could win.
Right, exactly. Dogs for the win. Thanks for the $9.99. Losing the popular vote while winning the election, like 16, might be constitutionally valid, but it definitely violates democratic norms, like one person, one vote. I mean, I think that's a more complicated question. I understand what you're saying, right? It seems counterintuitive, but I mean, this is federalism, right? To an extent. I mean, this is why the Senate.
Yeah,
exists.
We're not a democracy; we're a republic.
Yeah, and people who say we should get rid of the Electoral College, like if you support getting rid of the Electoral College, then you're also for getting rid of the Senate, right? Because when you think about it, there's really no reason for the Senate without the Electoral College. Because if you're just going to go by popular, like if nationwide popular vote carries that much weight, then you don't need an equalizing body that gives every state equal say at a legislative level either, right? I mean, it just doesn't really compute. Now,
well,
you want to? I mean, look, there are a lot of people who say there should be no Senate, that the Senate is an anti-democratic body. I mean, if that's the way you feel, then that's fine, right? But I'm just saying, like, this idea that nationwide popular vote should be the end-all, be-all has a lot bigger implications than just saying, well, presidential elections should be decided by a nationwide popular vote. You're really altering the dynamic under which the entire system functions once you decide that, no, states aren't really meaningful when it comes to national policy decisions. Obviously, the most important one of all, who the president is, right?
Well, I think we should just do an American version of the House of Lords. It'll be all CEOs.
Right, exactly. Tusker, have you seen The Boys on the Tracks? I have not. I have not.
I have not either. I haven't even heard of it.
Yeah, I have not seen The Boys on the Tracks. We will look into that, though. Thank you, Tusker. Folks, thank you very much for being here tonight. We had a great time with you all. Long show tonight, another long one. We said these shows weren't going to be as long now that we're doing 3 a week. But this was another epic one. Yeah, so we will be back tomorrow night on Rumble for our patron and paid Substack subscriber exclusive stream. We had 2 Patreon members sign up over the course of this show. Thank you very much, and we will see you tomorrow. You'll get that email in the morning, folks. We'll see you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. For our Patreon and paid Substack subscriber exclusive show tomorrow night, and then we will be back bright and early Friday morning at 9 a.m.
Those are the ones where we say things we wouldn't say here. So if you're not signed up, there's still time.
There's still
time.
Sign
up to hear us say things that would get us some nasty strikes on here.
Exactly. And then we will
get
be
3
back.
Strikes in one night for the shit we say.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And then, of course, obviously back 9 a.m. bright and early Friday morning. So we're looking forward to that very much as well. Those Friday morning shows have been a lot of fun. We've enjoyed doing them very much, and we look forward to the next one. So full program of Due Dissidence this week. We did a Sunday night show, then we did a Monday night show on RBN. Tonight, tomorrow night, Friday morning, putting in the time, folks, and thank you so much for making it possible. We appreciate you all very much. Thanks for being here. We'll see the patrons and our Substack supporters tomorrow night, 8 p.m. The rest of you freeloaders, the rest of you takers, right? We'll see you back here, 9 a.m. Friday morning. Until then, of course.
You guys got to find your bootstraps, man.
Right. You guys need to find your bootstraps, right? Find your bootstraps to support the show. Thanks very much for being here, everybody. You're a great crowd, as always. We'll see you next time. Until we meet again, be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.